This lad gets struck every single day. He has no dad to safeguard him, and those children are merciless. They struck him so severely that each day he comes back to his mother hardly able to walk. She soothes and restores him as well as she is able, but it recurs again and once more, until one day, when merely thrashing this unfortunate boy isn't sufficient, they carry toxic spines. While one large boy shoves him to the floor so he can't shift, another individual pierces him. The toxin swiftly circulates through his body, and his eyes brim with blood. Then they simply abandon him there to perish in the midst of nowhere. The boy cannot determine how much time has elapsed. Rain begins falling, but he still cannot shift. He senses demise approaching, but recalling his mother, he just can't surrender. Who would safeguard her then? He pleads the skies for not a lot, just the power to safeguard his mother and lead a regular life. Abruptly, with a clap of thunder, a blade drops directly in front of him, and oddly, it feels completely known. He collects all his leftover energy and seizes the grip. An overflow of recollections occupies his thoughts. This identical blade used to be his in his previous existence. He practiced with it for 100 years continuously and perfected every motion to the rank of a genuine sword deity. And now that he's recollected everything and recovered his former abilities, he'll ultimately be capable of leading a typical life. The following morning, his mother hurriedly approaches our protagonist, inquiring where he believes he is heading after arriving so hurt yesterday. Instead of being disheartened, he informs her not to fret and guarantees nothing negative will occur. He grins and gestures at her, assuring to return. Meanwhile, standing beside a tree, the tormentor ponders if Yen Mayong is evading them today. Another bully responds that they assaulted him quite severely, so he likely doesn't want his mother to view him in a pitiful condition. The initial tormentor chuckles, stating that if he appears, they will thrash him completely, and if he doesn't, they will assemble the children to ridicule him. Just then, another tormentor pivots, proclaiming our son is arriving. Ryong leaps down from the tree, prompting him that he is quite tardy, and she believed he wasn't going to appear. Our protagonist confronts them with a vacant demeanor. The lad tormentor advances, observing that Yen Mayong must have experienced a tough moment, but inquiring why he appears unscathed. The guy behaves like a Chad he is, asserting that much will not harm him. Moon Chan and the other tormentors are astonished at his boldness. In reply, John Gil grits his teeth in fury, proposing he requires a warm compress. He begins rotating his wrist, prepared to battle. Unexpectedly, our lad expresses gratitude to John Gil. When she listens to her name, she interrupts him and applauds, her cheeks almost reddening. She inquires what the event is and why Yen Mayong is addressing them by their names today. Soon, her remarks become malevolent as she inquires if yesterday's toxin wasn't sufficient and if they should increase the dosage. John Gil becomes furious and yells, questioning why our protagonist isn't focusing on the individual in front of him. He lifts his hand to strike our lad, but in an instant, Yen Mayong places a hand on his visage and throws him onto the floor. The other tormentors are astonished. As a consequence of the force, the effect generates a massive indentation in the ground. They ponder how John Gil got struck down in one blow. As far as Ryong is concerned, Yen Mayong was meant to be inexperienced in martial arts. Moon Chan also frets, stating he doesn't understand what occurred. Boy thinks that there is no cause he cannot accomplish what they can. He then recalls to them they are taking part in the clan leader contest and inquires if they plan to approach with their existing abilities. Our protagonist begins moving toward them, radiating such a powerful presence that even the tormentors are frightened. Moon Chan grits his teeth, believing Yen Mayong appears to be a totally distinct individual overnight. Nonetheless, he instructs himself to relax, reasoning that John Gil was taken by surprise. He persuades himself that after preparing for years, they will not be defeated by someone like him. With a bellow, Moon Chan yells a provocation, springing into the sky with his blade and rushing down toward our main character. However, in midair, our champion seizes his hand, shattering his tool. He states that if the standard of the participants is like this, the contest for the clan leader is almost determined. Ultimately, our lad contorts Moon Chan's hand, totally conquering him. The concealed toxin chamber, formerly the residence of the clan chief, now functions as the council chamber for the elders. An elder speaks to the gathering. Since everyone has assembled, the meeting ought to begin. He observes that the contenders for the forthcoming young clan leader contest seem to have been confirmed. Due to this, he suggests a conclusive resolution concerning the involvement of Tang Yen Mayong, the offspring of the poison phoenix. Although Yen Mayong has not formally declared his involvement, it is widely recognized that the other kids have openly defeated him. Not to mention, he has demonstrated no accomplishments. That is why he presumes there ought to be no opposition to omitting him. However, a participant contends that omitting our main character, who possesses the lineage of the former clan chief, could provoke inquiries regarding the validity of upcoming contests. The elder recognizes the worry but asserts it would be a larger issue if someone inexperienced were to diminish the standard of the competition. Even if our champion is of the former leader's lineage, he now amounts to nothing but a hindrance. Just then, the door crashes open, astonishing everyone. Our lad enters, pulling Tang Yen Mayong behind him. The seniors insist on understanding what he is doing. Yen Mayong showcases the harmed Ryong, her eye entirely crimson, a distinct indication she has been toxicized. When inquired for a clarification, he discloses that he is completely conscious of his actions. The members are appalled to observe this unparalleled spectacle. The boy clarifies his stance. He has suffered oppression in the Tang clan for far too long, and he no longer plans to tolerate anything. In reply, a participant yells, inquiring how he could injure a kid taking part in the contest. Another pressure is that injuring a rival is a grave offense. But as far as our lad is concerned, he is completely conscious of the family regulations. So he inquires whether there is any issue with a clash between contenders. The senior requests explanation, inquiring if he genuinely plans to take part. Yen Mayong, however, thinks that his deeds are evidence sufficient. He proposes they examine the vacant area outside, where Moonshan and Jean Gil, who previously tormented him, are resting. He has merely adhered to the family guideline, repaying generosity twofold and vengeance tenfold. After he talks, quiet envelopes the hall. The senior tightens his hand in fury, but ultimately recognizes that Yen Mayong has demonstrated his value. Other members object, contending he is taking advantage of the regulations and jeopardizing others. However, the elder lifts his hand, quieting them. He states that Yen Mayong shall take part. They have no authority to prevent a capable child. Still, he cautions that he wishes Yen Mayong's assurance aligns with his ability. For if he does not turn into the youthful clan chief, he will compensate for what occurred today. Subsequently, Yen Mayong informs his mother about everything. She is anxious, inquiring how he could perform such an act, but he clarifies it was essential. She understands from his firm tone that this is not merely an eruption. Reflecting on his name Mayong, signifying to endure as long as possible, she acknowledges that she believed he was still a kid, but she now perceives the presence of a remarkable man. Once she understands this, she kneels, grasping his hand, and declares she will not inquire him ever how he acquired his techniques. Though she wishes to know only one thing, is he assured about competing? Our lad grins, reminding her that he is the Toxin Phoenix's offspring. His phrases make her sentimental, and she embraces him, conveying her pride. Clutching his mother, our main character believes her hug is cozy. As a result, he pledges to safeguard his mundane existence and remove anything that disrupts. 1 month afterward, in the garden, Tang Ji-hee strolls with Tang Jiohui, the Dark King's supreme leader. He contemplates maintaining the status quo, particularly since the rivalry is not a trivial matter. She grins, instructing him to allow Mayong to be, assured that our champion has his motives. In return, Jiohui also recognizes the boy's mindset and bravery is astonishing for his age. She appreciates him for safeguarding Mayong thus far. Even so, Jiohui acknowledges he had to intervene, but questions if it is truly acceptable for our boy not to practice individually. Meanwhile, our main character sits in his chamber, contemplating. He ponders on his schedule, consuming wholesome dishes, resting properly, and utilizing internal techniques to amend his distorted chi pathways. You see, merely refining power and ability is unwarranted at this moment for someone who has emerged as a swordmaster. For that reason, he thinks it is crucial to strengthen the vessel first. He puts his hand on the earth, considering that at the delicate age of 12, his channels are not significantly obstructed. Balancing on a single finger, Yang Mayong determines that as his rank rises, his metamorphosis will happen organically. Ultimately, contest day comes. Our lad eagerly informs his mother he is departing, and she advises him to look after himself. Tang Jiohui also says goodbye to his sister, and then our champion and Jiohui leave. From the rear, the mother observes them, hoping Tang Longriang could observe how well their child has developed. At the Dark King Hall, numerous attendees arrive. Our fellow is occupied consuming, observing they reached early. Just then, a bunch of lads approaches, identifying him as the offspring of the Poison Phoenix who assaulted Moonshan. However, they reject it as a baseless gossip, asserting he couldn't even master martial arts. Because of this, they determine they need to instill some order. Our main character, irritated, hurls a rice cake at the leader's visage. The strength of the collision sends the boy to the floor. The others yell, questioning if he employed a concealed weapon. Soon, one understands it is merely a partially consumed rice cake, and marvels how it could be so potent. Yang Mayong ridicules them, questioning the group by inquiring if they will flee despite being members. Furious, the squad assaults him collectively, but our lad doesn't even waver. From the opposite side, Tang Jiohui nears and observes a body tossed into midair. He sprints toward our hero, only to discover the entire team sprawled on the floor. Yang Myong perches on the heap, consuming a rice cake. He inquires Jiohui if he has shown up, mentioning he was becoming uninterested. He grins, advising the chief not to misinterpret as they initiated it. Subsequently, Jiohui facepalms. In the assembly, individuals yell at the Grand Elder. They are uncertain how they can disregard so many wounds just prior to the contest. In view of this, Elder Sayok Jung proposes altering the regulations. Outside, attendees assemble in queue. One girl murmurs, inquiring how the contest is carried out, so another girl clarifies the procedure. 2 to 3 years of practice followed by one-on-one battles. On stage, Tang Jiohui requests quiet. He presents himself as the supervisor and clarifies the arrangement. 3 years of training succeeded by the primary contest. Unexpectedly, the elder steps onto the stage and declares that it will be held as a goo toxin contest. Everyone is astonished, as they understand a goo toxin contest pertains to putting powerful toxins in a container to contend until only the most lethal endures, a battle royale where solely one persists. The elder clarifies that owing to the unfortunate events leading to many dropouts, they cannot continue with regular duels. Naturally, Jiohui understands this is occurring because of our lad. The elder declares that to avert additional occurrences, they alter the format. Consequently, the pupils are evidently furious, attributing fault to Jung. The elder states the role is crucial to the Tang family's future. He orders them to battle, endure, and triumph, assuring the winner will own everything. Our guy gazes at his rivals with a grin. Now that he understands only one rival will endure, he reflects that it does not appear challenging at all. At night, a covert gathering occurs at the Dark Moon Sword Sect camp within the Black Death Alliance region in Sichuan province. One of the individuals expresses gratitude to all for assembling, then requests them to pay close attention concerning the recent plans of the Tang family. In reply, the other individuals at the round table ask if he is alluding to the youthful clan leader contest. The third individual verifies this, mentioning that their informants indicated the contest commenced a few days prior, and as a result, the contenders, the youngsters with the capability to guide the Tang family, have already departed in carriages. They converse about how the present Tang family is feeble enough that their chief, Yu Gil Jun of the Black Death Alliance, could annihilate them at any moment. However, the speaker clarifies that Yu Gil Jun is abandoning them for the time being because they still hold some value. He emphasizes that these youngsters are the future of the household. Consequently, if anything occurs to them, it will inflict a lasting impact on the Tang family. The men concur with the elder of the Dark Moon Sword Sect, but a participant cautions that they must stay vigilant, inquiring when they ought to proceed. The senior responds that, for the time being, they will take no action, which functions to astonish the other members. The elder thinks that monitoring the carriages and eliminating the frail birds at this moment would be too simple, and therefore not a severe enough strike. He reminds them that the contest lasts for 4 years, urging them to envision the destruction if all the meticulously nurtured children perish right at the peak. With a smile, the masked individual smirks, conceding that it would certainly be a lethal strike. Another member proposes allowing the Jigal family or the Moyong family manage it. The Dark Moon Elder, Makinhu, concurs, determining that they will simply follow the carriages and execute their plan after 4 years. The monitoring is already organized and has already sown a small seed to guarantee the Tang family falls completely into their grasp. Meanwhile, at the common mountain location for the contest, the instructor guides the group ahead. The man declares that although the regulations altered, the timetable stays the same, so attendees will be referred to by number instead of names. Since they are Group 7, the teacher turns and notices one is absent. Glancing back, he inquires number 28, "Who is our main character? Why is he falling behind?" Yen Myong expresses regret for the delay as he was merely contemplating for a moment. The teacher reprimands him even with his excuse, cautioning him not to lag behind. As they stroll, our boy ponders why the individual guiding them doesn't perceive it. He senses a presence behind them, convinced they are being followed. Abruptly, as they advance, they halt in front of a massive precipice. From the cliff, a voice requests the password from Group 7. The teacher responds with "Toxic Monarch of Concealed Venom," and a beam glows, verifying the code. Instantly, a silhouette emerges from the cliffside, grasping a hand fan. He presents himself as Jigal Chongshin, declaring he is here to help in their contest. The pupils understand that the Jigal family was formerly one of the 5 prominent families, renowned experts of formations, but they declined due to the assault of the Heaven's Brilliance Demon Lord. The team strolls into the cliff, and they are astonished to witness a stunning scenery concealed within. Jigal Chongshin clarifies they utilize their formations to prevent outsiders from meddling with the contest. Naturally, Yuri is astonished, realizing this is the renowned formation method of the Jigal family. Aijuan is also also impressed, observing that within the formation, you cannot discern the season or space. While the group begins traversing a barrier of lightning, Mirio glances at our boy from the side. She believes he is acting odd and not focusing, recalling he was behaving similarly earlier in the carriage. Reflecting on a recollection of the carriage journey, the teacher instructed the kids to present themselves. Yuri gazed at our protagonist, observing everyone is aware of the battle he had. Ijuan then informed our boy he is rather well known for leaving Tangyong-ryong in such a poor condition. Yuri considers our protagonist daring for his deeds. She cautions him that he may not be secure throughout the 4 years of the contest, considering Tangyong-ryong's great-grandfather is one of the 3 elders. At that moment, Yen Myong interjected, inquiring if they were accusing him for the contest transforming into a goo toxin match. Mirio declined to allow the matter to fade away. Given his arrogant expression, she is uncertain if that resembled the face of someone who felt remorseful. Instead of expressing regret, our lad grinned, making Mirio even more furious. Back in the current time, Mirio observes our protagonist while strolling. She promises that if this guy creates another issue, she won't overlook it. Unexpectedly, she collides with Yuri because everyone ceases moving. Both Yuri and Ijuan appear frightened, understanding that Jigel Chongshin, their mentor, has entirely vanished. To their astonishment, our lad advances and attempts to reach the vacant atmosphere. Mirio ponders what he is up to. She finds it odd that he appears so at ease. Meanwhile, Jigel Chongshin strolls down the path alone. In his thoughts, he presumes the children must be freaking out inside the arrangement by now. After all, he understands that within the Jigel family's 7-lock illusion dome arrangement, there is no way out without the creator. He remembers the senior promise to double the assistance for the Jigel family if he removes number 28. But unexpectedly, to Jigel Chongshin's astonishment, the atmosphere behind him splits apart. From the fissure, the 4 children glance out. Chongshin entirely panics, yelling in bewilderment. Our lad inquires about the likelihood with teacher Jigel what will occur if he abandons them. Chongshin is voiceless, then swiftly fabricates and asserts he erred. Yuri pivots toward our main character, inquiring how he accomplished that, to which he merely replies he severed it. As far as Mirio is concerned, this isn't the moment to fret about that, informing everyone not to misplace instructor Jigel Chongshin again. But when they glance back, Chongshin is already absent again. They yell that he vanished, prompting our boy to release a profound exhale. While fleeing, the teacher believes he is pitiful, escaping within his own structure. Soon he observes a glowing light, realizing it is the exit directing to the training area. He flees the arrangement, believing this ought to be sufficient. But then, a sound notifies him. It is Tang Wanjin, the overseer for Group 7. The teacher gets really frightened, so he fabricates and states it appears Group 7 will not be taking part, clarifying they didn't arrive. But just then, the atmosphere behind them begins breaking. From the opposite side of the arrangement, our champion thrusts his blade into the fissure, and the fracture splinters into fragments like glass. Jigel Chongshin observes in astonishment. As the Jigel family's ultimate method, the 7-lock phantom dome arrangement, shatters so effortlessly. Finally, Yen Myung gazes at the teacher with crimson shining eyes. Mirio, astonished, ponders how our champion shattered the arrangement with merely a short blade, inquiring how that is even feasible. Our lad clarifies that he didn't shatter the arrangement. Instead, he merely created a space. He then cautions it will shut quickly, so they should rush and depart. From the forefront, the overseer yells, inquiring if they are the members of Group 7. The pupils verify it but inquire who he is, until one of them observes the Tang family emblem on his hood. The overseer states he was concerned they were assaulted, just as the instructor mentioned. Hearing this, Yen Myung turns toward the teacher and repeats the word assault sarcastically. The instructor is clearly trembling with fear. Our main character smirks, implying the instructor must have misinterpreted them for being confused. Thanks to him for indicating the entrance, they discovered their path effortlessly. Yen Myung believes the teacher is behaving under instructions from the Tang family elders for the time being, but chooses to leave it as is since it is merely a conjecture. However, he promises that if he discovers after the contest that the mentor collaborated with the elders, he will annihilate the Jiggle clan entirely. In reply, the teacher chuckles with a trembling voice, expresses regret for committing an error, and states he will go inspect the damaged formation. With that, he flees swiftly. The supervisor then greets them for reaching safely, expressing regret for the commotion and the absence of a guide. He presents himself as Tang Wanjin, a participant of the Bonghui Brigade, accountable for their preparation during the contest. The Bonghui Brigade is a direct armed unit that operated under the previous young clan chief of the Tang family. Because each member is as formidable as a great leader, they are one of the Tang family's most powerful elite forces. Mirio observes Yen Myung dig in his nose and feels annoyed, particularly as she recalls recalls that the former young clan leader was his mother, the poison phoenix. After tossing a booger aside, our boy inquires why Tang Wanjin is not in the Tang family primary residence. The overseer clarifies that years prior, they engaged in a frantic struggle to defend their master, the poison phoenix, against heaven's radiant demon lord, but were obliterated, and since they did not safeguard their master, they are merely wrongdoers. Students gaze anxiously at the term sinner, but the overseer persists in clarifying the guidelines. The initial year is for self-training, permitting them to practice however they choose, and they will obtain martial arts literature or instruction based on achievement. A pupil inquires about the mythical method of the Tang family, the 10,000 heavenly blossom rain, which was vanished during the battle with the demon sovereign. The overseer verifies the 10,000 heavenly flower rain is assured to the individual who becomes the young clan chief. Although it is unfinished, the elders have transmitted the core of the method. Consequently, our lad contemplates the 10,000 heavenly flower rain. He understands it is a method that manages numerous concealed arms like a fierce downpour, akin to blade management methods, and therefore ponders if he can replicate it. The manager states he has spoken excessively, instructing them to concentrate solely on training. He also specified they can practice together or individually without restriction. Muriel inquires where they will rest, to which the overseer replies they will rest in the wilderness to discover how to endure in the woods. Naturally, this frightens the children. The manager inquires if they believed they would be educating in cozy beds, contending that ease does not render them resilient. That's why adjusting to harsh surroundings is the focus. He lifts his fist and instructs them to begin training according to their own discretion. While the three children are trembling with fright, our main character stays calm. Yen Myung interjects and inquires if it is acceptable to reside comfortably and rest in a pleasant bed if he is eligible. After all, nourishment is vital for developing children. He also believes that acclimating to the forest appears unwarranted. Once more, the children grit their teeth, astonished at his hubris. The overseer ponders for a moment, perceiving our lad as the epitome of arrogance. Even though the other children get angry at him, the overseer consents to the agreement. He states if our protagonist succeeds in an examination, he can remain in the manor within the structure. But if he does not succeed, he best be ready. Yen Myung concurs. The overseer then declares the examination is easy. Team participants will encircle him and hurl concealed arms. Abruptly, the setting shifts. Our lad stands in the center while surrounding him on the earth, in the foliage, and on the precipice. Men are anticipating. The overseer clarifies the examination. If our hero succeeds in obstructing or evading the arms within 5 strides while blindfolded, he succeeds. Once he ties a blindfold around his eyes, the individual above the precipice readies his knives. Every individual in position becomes vigilant. The other pupils question if this is even feasible, observing that no one is shifting yet. Mirio ponders if they are anticipating to elevate the tension. Unexpectedly, everyone hurls their arms at our champion from all angles. Yen Myung remains entirely motionless, tallying all the daggers hurled at him. He believes it is a tad excessive, but still an easy assignment. He draws out his blade and employs a method known as attachment. As a result, he deflects all the assaults with his own blade. Attachment is a concept of martial arts frequently disregarded, falling under classifications like depth, mass, velocity, and transformation. The particular art of elevation includes shattering, dispersing, connection, severing, and acuity. For Yen Myung, who understood these concepts through the blade in his former life, this is simple. But for those who haven't attained enlightenment, it is startling. Our protagonist deflects every single weapon. None of them contact him. In fact, none even approach an inch near him. Everyone is astonished, and the overseer cannot comprehend what occurred. Just with a solitary motion, all the concealed arms were deflected, drawn, and neutralized. The pupils inquire what they just observed, unable to trust all the arms were halted with one motion. Then, our main character removes his blindfold and inquires if he succeeded. Students observe the supervisor, who is preoccupied with his reflections, until they yell to gain his notice. The overseer coughs and acknowledges our lad succeeded. He informs him he may proceed to the manor and relax. As Yen Myung twirls his knife, the overseer believes a creature appears to have emerged. Mirio, on the other hand, is irritated and envious, so she yells, inquiring if he intends to abandon his team to relish solitude by himself. The cat disregards her. He gazes directly forward with a grin, and questions openly if the manor provides various dishes as well. Naturally, the pupils are additionally irritated observing him mock them like this. The manager believes it is positive that the other team participants haven't lost enthusiasm, but he senses the struggle for the clan leader role is already determined before the contest even starts. Perhaps this child is the one. Abruptly, our lad halts walking walking pivots around and prompts his teacher to add meat with every meal because he must consume properly to develop. Subsequently, a group of wolves arrives at the remains of a deceased bear, keen to dine. However, the instant they sink their fangs into the flesh, they start to cough forcefully, blood gushing from their jaws as they fall, frothing at the mouth. At that instant, from the darkness, a pupil leaps ahead and completes them. After handling the wolves, the team relaxes inside a cavern for the night. Yuri is thrilled that the paralysis toxin she concocted functioned flawlessly. Aijin also concurs, noting that if she keeps executing like this, they ought to be fine. Furthermore, Mirio praises him, stating his toxin crafting abilities are remarkable, and his downpour method is not typical either. All three gather around the flame with somber expressions, anticipating the meat to prepare. While awaiting, Yuri contemplates that it has already been 4 months. She remembers how on their initial day, they were engrossed with escaping, and their first meeting was with a bear. She mourns that they could not even locate food initially, and had to endure on grass roots while shedding tears. Ultimately, however, they triumphed in pursuing and discovering refuge. Unexpectedly, Aijin ponders aloud if Yen Myong is residing comfortably by. Now, the simple reference to Yen Myong's name activates Mirio, who yells at him not to mention that guy. Aijin confesses he is merely inquisitive. She vows that once he departs for the manor, he will receive what he merits. Internally, though, Aijin contemplates differently. Considering the performance Yen Myong displayed earlier, he ponders just how powerful he must have grown if he has persisted in training all this time. Just then, Mirio observes something amiss and inquires where their meat disappeared. They face the blaze only to discover the skewers vacant. It appears Yuri has already devoured every morsel of it. She belches loudly, pleased with the feast, and observing their death stares, inquires why they are gazing at her like that. Naturally, Mirio and Aijin burst in fury, yelling at her for posing such a clear question. Meanwhile, at the Gangdong Mountain 7-lock illusion dome structure stronghold, Yen Myong stands in the middle of the training area, surrounded by numerous armed fighters. Instructor Wu Jin issues the command to start, and promptly, 2 fighters charge at him from distinct sides. Yen Myong secures a quick strike on one, but while he is briefly sidetracked, the remainder of the group leaps with their arms. However, he observes every tiny motion. Before their edges can touch him, he disappears. The fighters are astonished, glancing about in bewilderment, until unexpectedly, Yen Myong emerges above them in mid-air, donning rings on all 10 digits. He proclaims it is moment to evaluate his novel method. He interlocks his hands, eyes shining green. Then, as the fighters prepare themselves, Yen Myong tosses all 10 rings downwards. The fighters are perplexed by the dispersed arms, but abruptly the rings change in mid-air. They convert into pointed, circular whirling blades, assaulting before anyone can respond. Yen Myong instructs them to rotate, and therefore the rings shift in a frenzied, disorderly pattern, performing the spinning line frenzy dance. Instructor Wu Jin observes in astonishment and understands that Yen Myong incapacitated the skilled members in a moment. Furthermore, he managed the strength of such a broad-spectrum assault to merely nick everyone's skin, evading lethal injuries. Wu Jin advances, grasping one of the bands, and inquires if Yen Myong developed this method himself. Yen Myong verifies it, labeling the maneuver spinning line frenzy dance. Wu Jin is astonished. After all, it would be almost unfeasible to flee if ensnared in that range. Not to mention, sustaining such a method must expend a tremendous amount of internal energy, so it's perplexing how he even accomplished it. In reply, Yen Myong clarifies that he previously requested the guide on vision methods. Wu Jin agrees, remembering there were the sharp sky eyes and the present flow eyes. He recollects suggesting the sharp sky eyes because the alternative method was recognized to be unfinished, but Yen Myong discloses that he has perfected the present flow eyes. Needless to say, Wu Jin is astonished. He reflects to himself that the present flow gaze is one of the most ancient methods of the Tang family, yet this outsider has mastered it. Yen Myong clarifies that although the core was absent, he recognized the method was a component of an emerging martial art. By utilizing the present current vision, he can observe the ideal path, enabling him to fire the arms accurately with minimal internal energy consumption. At this moment, nothing astonishes Wu Jin anymore. He acknowledges that Yen Myong completed the absent essence by investigating on his own. Shifting the topic, Wu Jin states that in 2 months, the children from his squad will come to take the same examination. He discloses that they have already demonstrated they possess the ability to take the exam, but they insisted on coming back only after they were more refined. Yen Myong grins as he discovers it fascinating. He is truly thrilled to see how powerful those friends have grown. Observing him depart, Wu Jin ponders if Yen Myong was indeed concerned about his companions. Meanwhile, Yen Myong gazes at the sky, contemplating destiny. In his previous previous existence, his soul link was his mentor, the Sword Phantom. Now, despite his beginnings and deeds, new relationships are emerging, establishing what could be regarded as part of a typical life. Due to this, he considers his team associates, recognizing that for some reason, he desires to see them as well. Back in the cavern, the tumultuous fight persists as Mirio and Aijin reprimand Yuri for consuming all the meat. Ultimately, 2 months afterward, the group is prepared to progress to the subsequent phase. They are excited as they stroll toward the fortress. Mirio contemplates that on the initial day of training, they were merely beginners, but now they have achieved a wholly different degree of strength. In reality, Aijin confesses he is genuinely thrilled to encounter Yen Myong once more, while Yuri complains that she will divide his head in two. From behind, the remainder of the trainees observe the trio, murmuring that they are quite frightening. The crew then enters the chamber of the Gangdong Mountain Fortress. Mirio yells at the peak of her voice, insisting Tang Yen Myong to emerge immediately. However, the chamber is still. Mirio glances around, pondering why it is so tranquil, and she chuckles, inquiring if he fled out of fright. Yuri clicks her tongue, stating it is unfortunate because she wished to crush his skull. Mirio spins around, shouting once more that he has been excessively silent, but unexpectedly she halts. Yen Myong is positioned directly behind her, nonchalantly placing a hand on her shoulder. He murmurs that he was concealing himself to astonish them. He then grins, inquiring precisely what they were intending to do to his head, referring to them as cuties. The three pupils gaze in astonishment as our lad keeps talking. He inquires if they were discussing crushing his head previously, then humorously speculates if they wish to witness the outcomes of their training, or if he ought to strike first. In reply, Mirio and Yuri both exclaim that they were merely teasing. Mirio nibbles her lip, pondering to herself. She recognizes they didn't even observe him until they pivoted, and therefore, she contemplates if this is the distinction in their abilities, even after all the time invested in the woods honing their perceptions. Hiro abruptly embraces Yuri, attracting Mirio's notice. She examines him, pondering what he has accomplished during this period. At that instant, she observes Yen Myong has increased in height. His visage appears altered as well. The young woman flushes, but swiftly reprimands herself, wondering why she is contemplating this manner. Our lad comforts her not to be disheartened, clarifying that even from his viewpoint, they've grown significantly more resilient than prior. However, he states that they merely appear less remarkable because he is present. Due to this, the trio appear vexed, believing his bothersome self-assurance remains constant. In the meantime, within the chamber at the circular table, Instructor Jigal Chongshin summons everyone to assemble. He inquires if there was anyone significant in their groups, to which one educator refers to participant number 2, stating she has demonstrated significant improvement compared to others. He clarifies that instead of a desire to grow more powerful, she appears to be seething with tremendous animosity for someone and thrives on that feeling. Another educator mentions participant number 10, who completed the warrior examination in merely a month. Meanwhile, Chongshin reflects to himself. He acknowledges number 2 and number 10 stand out. However, after encountering number 28, Yang Myong, they appear mundane. He remembers how astonished he was when our protagonist escaped from the formation, and exhibited abilities that even experts could not accomplish. Nonetheless, Chongshin determines that enlisting number 28 is too hazardous because the boy appears to have detected his plotting. When an educator inquires if Chongshin is okay, Chongshin asserts, stating his team did not possess anyone remarkable. He chooses to omit number 28 from the conversation since they require a figure they can manipulate. Instead, he proposes enlisting number 2. He intends to present her to his nephew, stating that he learned number 2 has a deformed face from an accident, so it ought not to be challenging to sway her emotions. Chongshin clarifies his strategy. If they assist this child in succeeding and betroth her to his nephew, the Jiggle family will formally become the external family of the Tang family leader. Ultimately, they will combine the Tang family with their primary residence. With that, he finishes the meeting. While exiting, Chongshin contemplates that number 28 is too precious to forfeit. That's why he resolves that if our protagonist endures the contest, he will entice him with retribution, embrace him as a son, and present him the role of Jiggle family young clan chief. At a later time, within the mansion, Mirio feels joyful. Even though their preparation has increased twofold, nothing compares to the ease of a restful night's slumber. She pivots to Yuri and inquires if Aijin and Yanmyong visited the lab today. Yuri replies affirmatively, adding that Aijin burst in there, clenching his teeth and swearing to eliminate. Inside the laboratory, Aijin grins. He raises a flask and states this is the toxin he invested his entire spirit into creating. Suddenly, our fellow grabs the dish of toxin and consumes it immediately. Aijin goes berserk, questioning why he ingested that much. He labels him a lunatic and shakes shakes Yanmyong forcefully until our protagonist feels like he is going to lose consciousness from the shaking. Lather develops in his mouth, but then our lad belches right in Ijin's face. Ijin collapses to the earth in astonishment while our main character feels resistant to the toxin. He grins, inquiring if the toxin is less potent than anticipated. Due to this, Ijin nearly begins weeping, yelling that it is a toxin that could dissolve his insides and questions why he is still fine. Our guy mocks him, implying perhaps his toxin just isn't that effective. Naturally, this renders Ijin enraged. He yells, wondering why our champion isn't perishing. Outside the entrance, Mirio and Yuri hear the yelling and speculate it isn't effective. Subsequently, our lad consumes another bowl. Ijin advises him not to ingest poison as if it is alcohol, but our main character inquires if there is additional information because it doesn't influence him at all. Ijin pounds his fist in fury, questioning if our protagonist is resistant to everything. In the interim, Yanmyong cleans his lips and contemplates. He understands it is distinct from being invulnerable. Rather, it is the Tang family fundamental method, the toxin refining insanity. He believes that if they are called poison masters, they should be capable of managing even the toxins that enter them. As anticipated, the toxins that entered his body converted into internal energy. That is the reason, within a specific boundary, toxins are no distinct from a potion for our lad. Nevertheless, he realizes this condition can solely be attained through profound comprehension. He understands that feeble toxins barely enhance his internal energy now, so he requires more potent ones. He contemplates the risks ahead. Yanmyong understands he cannot assure triumph if the Black Death Alliance or the Heaven's Radiant Demon Lord were to assault. He holds no individual animosity towards the Black Death Alliance, but since they separated Sichuan City, he cannot disregard them. Their chief is referred to as a mastermind who obliterated 3 of the 9 groups. Consequently, to exist as a human, our lad must grow as powerful as he was in his former life. Ijin fatigued murmurs that if only he could produce the Tang family's 10 toxins. Our protagonist pivots and inquires what he just mentioned, so Ijin clarifies that the 10 toxins are the most potent toxins inherited from their forebears. He states the greater the number, the more powerful the toxin. However, most equations were forgotten to time. He states that the 10th toxin was so powerful that even experts of the transcendent tier were impacted. Yanmyong is astonished, believing that a toxin that impacts transcendent level experts is worth desiring. He inquires Ijin if he can concoct the 10th toxin, but Ijin contends it is unfeasible because the recipe is missing. Our fellow feels gloomy because Ijin's present toxin doesn't even provide him a feeling anymore. This irritates Ijin, and he cautions that the 10th toxin is so perilous it is prohibited, stating even our lad wouldn't endure consuming it. Meanwhile, at night, participant number 2 battles a man who constricts her throat. Dark smoke emerges from the man's mouth as he inquires what she did to him. He coughs and flames emanate from his mouth. Then she requests him to reiterate it. She ridicules his visage as flames burst from his eyes and mouth. He yells and leaps toward her, but before he can arrive at her, his hand shatters like a fragment of rock. He drops to the earth and entirely breaks. She grins, observing he was incinerated to cinders in a moment. Furthermore, she admires the strength of the toxin provided by her grandfather, disclosing that this is the Tang family's 10th toxin. She contacts her deformed visage, stating the agony she endured that day is indelible. Once more, she pledges to continue expending this fury and anguish. She turns her locks away from her gaze, disclosing she is Tang Young Ryong. Ultimately, with a grin, she vows to torture Ijin Myong abundantly in the goo poison contest. The following day, the overseer Tang Wujin speaks to the group. He observes that another year has elapsed since their training and clarifies that, up to this moment, he has been honing their martial arts, but the true test starts today. Particularly, he declares that they will determine a team captain. The students appear astonished, so Wujin explains that they will designate a provisional leader for the time being. However, by the 3rd year, they will formally choose a leader to represent them in the goo poison contest. He adds that, since it is a life or death struggle, the most exceptional competitor should lead. After listening to this, Yuri observes that not all attendees attend the goo match, and Mirio understands this implies the late arrivals will perish. She states the selection ought to be founded on accomplishments, and therefore indicates participant 28, Tang Yongmyung. Ijin concurs, stating our lad is the primary competitor, so the overseer inquires if there are any dissensions. Everyone stays quiet. Then, the supervisor summons number 28 to step up to receive a prize. He offers a tiny box holding a tablet, clarifying that it is the Celestial Heart Tablet, an elixir crafted from 100-year-old ginseng that considerably boosts internal energy. The other members are astonished that such a valuable object is bestowed upon Jeonmyung. The manager clarifies it is an honor for the team leader because the Tang family has elevated expectations for them. Internally, however, he thinks his anticipations for Jeonmyeon are even greater. Our main character inquires if there is anything else, at which Woojin appears perplexed. Our boy then inquires if he can obtain something besides the elixir because he doesn't require it. Naturally, this irritates the other members. They yelled at him, inquiring if he understands its value and instructing him to give it up if he won't consume it. The overseer believes declining an elixir is improbable unless an individual's internal energy is already complete, so he inquires what Jeonmyeon desires instead. Our champion responds that he desires the Tang family's 10 toxins. Subsequently, the group assembles in Jeonmyeon's chamber, gazing at a heap of arms. Mirio inquires if this is everything he purchased and insists on knowing where the elixir is. Gripping a knife, our boy clarifies he couldn't acquire the toxins, so he chose these instead. Mirio attempts to strike him, but he evades, causing her to yell and label him a fool. Yuri states they ought to honor his decision, and John mentions that the elder will be happy to preserve the pill. Our protagonist interjects, disclosing he hasn't given back the pill yet. The setting changes hours prior. The overseer gives the arms to our lad, inquiring if he is certain. Our protagonist states he laments not acquiring the toxin, but this is adequate. When the overseer inquires if he requires anything further, our lad asks what the strategy is for the return tablet. The overseer replies it returns to the pharmacy, but our champion proposes a notion. If the group members unite efforts to conquer the provisional leader, they ought to receive the capsule. The manager concurs, believing it is positive encouragement. Back in the current time, our lad completes detailing, and then he instructs them to confront him anytime prior to the goo toxin contest. Instantly, the team members dash outside to retrieve their arms, yelling that Tang Yeonmyeong is finished. Observing them depart, our main character resolves not to take it easy on them. Indeed, he determines that if he becomes the youthful clan chief, he will guarantee everyone receives a divine heart pill. Subsequently, he strolls outside to arrange the hierarchy. Seasons go by, and the squad has expanded significantly. In the midst of a brawl, our lad strikes Yeonmyeong away and inquires how many times Yeonmyeong has been defeated. Yeonmyeong responds about 173 times. Mirio inquires if our protagonist ever becomes weary, while Yuri confesses she ceased battling long ago and merely exists to witness Yeonmyeong's visage. Mirio flushes and consents it is enjoyable to observe him. Ultimately, our lad reaches out a hand to Yeonmyeong, declaring that since Yeonmyeong acknowledged loss, our lad will assume the role. Yeonmyeong grabs his hand, stating he cannot envision Yeonmyeong being defeated by other squads. The manager then comes over and commends their development, officially designating participant number 28 as the group leader. He declares that the real goo toxin contest starts tomorrow. He observes other teams experienced fatalities and disqualifications. However, in contrast to them, Group 7 is secure and has attained progress similar to the Bongwi Brigade. He cautions them one final time, clarifying that in the slime toxin contest, the utilization of severe toxin except for the 10 toxins is permitted. Consequently, he advises them to enhance their abilities. The following day, each hands a container of toxins to our protagonist. He cautions that the potion subdued fairy toxin is deadly in a solitary drop and clarifies the visual toxin. Abruptly, he halts himself from fretting excessively and requests our lad to vow he will triumph. Ijuin stretches out his fist, and our champion grasps it, replies yes, and playfully hits him in the face. He assures that solely his companions could ever injure him, then transports to the earth, stating he is departing. Meanwhile, Tang Yeonmyeong possesses a vessel of toxin, announcing that the day has ultimately arrived. She feels fortunate to possess the 10 toxins and a new companion. Subsequently, she steps into a gateway and discovers mentor Jigel Chongshin awaiting. She inquires how the Jigel family intends to aid her, and the teacher states the venue employs his family's arrangement. Thus, relocating her to a favorable position is simple. Ryong inquires what they desire in exchange, and the teacher acknowledges his household is helpless and desires to unite with the Tang family without relinquishing authority. Ryong understands he desires to utilize her as a supporter to intervene in clan affairs, so she inquires what occurs if she declines them later. The teacher states that is the reason he is establishing trust now. Once they complete discussing the agreement, Ryong appears pleased. She believes she persevered 3 years for this occasion, and therefore, she pledges to eliminate Yeonmyeong and reclaim her existence. Elsewhere, Team 3 member Tang Gukrin stands drenched in blood. He wields a sword and appears disheartened, lamenting that the Tang family's military strength was merely words. Behind him, the corpses of the fighters who attempted to instruct him lie lifeless. Ultimately, our lad reaches the site. He glances about and considers it is the ideal day for someone to perish. With that, the goo toxin contest commences. The boy stands on top of the precipice, gazing down at the expansive goo toxin contest arena. He observes the region is vast, so he understands it could require some time to locate anyone. In the meantime, through sorcery, instructor Jigel Changshun observes our main character from afar. As anticipated from Group 7, number 28 has emerged. He senses that our boy's capability is being squandered, but since the Jigel family made their decision, he chooses to remove him swiftly before any factors emerge. Unexpectedly, Changshun is astonished. He observes our fellow gazing straight at him through the enchanting viewing. He isn't certain how that is feasible, considering that his sight is concealed behind numerous layers of structures. Without uncertainty, our lad slices the vacant atmosphere with his blade, and he severs the formation's link. He had sensed an uncomfortable stare and suspected it was the Jigel family. He recalls Supervisor Wu Jin stating no one should intervene in the match, yet our protagonist understands they have been tampering since the beginning. Due to this, he chooses to allow them to attempt anything they desire. He then leaps off the precipice, intending to interrogate them after the game concludes. Back inside the chamber, Changshun breathes heavily. He is frightened. He reflects on how he was encircled by multiple layers of formations, yet the boy identified him. He understands that if he hadn't swiftly retracted his gaze, he would have become blind. Furthermore, he observed the boy's swordplay slice through the realm of the arrangement itself. He openly acknowledges he has never witnessed such a proficiency. Changshun understands this is a misjudgment. Number 28 is not an individual they can manage. Consequently, his eyes become crimson as he resolves they must halt the boy by any methods essential, fearing retribution. Meanwhile, a girl sprints through the woods, gasping and bleeding. She doesn't wish to perish, and she laments entering the contest. She merely desired to attain a satisfactory outcome to assist her needy parents. That is why she intends to yield and retreat promptly. However, she unexpectedly encounters Tangakrin. He is drenched in blood and standing over numerous lifeless bodies. He gazes at her and states it is an opportune moment for a meeting. The girl attempts to flee, believing she merely wants to capitulate, but Tangakrin materializes behind her immediately. She is prepared to yield to anyone and depart from the Tang family, yet Tangakrin ridicules her. He inquires what she just mentioned about him becoming the clan chief and taunts her. She boasted but didn't endure long. Furthermore, he ridicules her buoyancy method and labels her inner strength pitiful. She yells at him, inquiring why he is going this far since they are all from the Tang family. In reply, Tangakrin grins and places his sword on her shoulder. The man doesn't care if his remarks are painful. Not to mention, he never once considered himself as a member of the Sichuan Tang family. With a simple swipe, he slashes her throat in one motion. Meanwhile, our lad dashes across the terrain. He halts when he notices a cavern. That's precisely what he required. Since there is no human existence, there is no danger of being discovered. He enters the cavern, observing that nothing is arousing his senses, so he chooses to swiftly rise to the transcendence level here. He sits far inside the cavern and believes that since his physique has expanded, there shouldn't be any repercussions. He begins collecting energy around his midsection, merging his illumination with the inner power he accumulated from consuming Ejon's toxins. Suddenly, our boy's physique erupts with tremendous vitality. He shatters the obstacle on his meridians, and his inner energy bursts with power. Typically, martial artists experience immense agony as joints fracture and reconnect, actually rejuvenating into a new physique. However, since our main character is undergoing this for the second occasion, it is not challenging for him. His eyes shine green while his entire body trembles with energy. Ultimately, he completes the procedure. He clears the perspiration from his visage and ponders if it was prudent to purify his meridians of toxins at this moment. He grumbles about the odor of dirt but states it feels pleasant. Subsequently, our lad appears from the cavern and positions himself in front of the precipice. He chooses to examine his strength, so he lifts his hand and directs 2 fingers ahead. A hidden power hits the rocks, and the cavern fractures. Our main character grins, considering the effectiveness of his internal energy is quite good, and he chooses to begin progressing correctly. Elsewhere, Tang Gukrin stands in front of a tree with his stained sword. He expresses that this is dull and inquires of the individual on the ground what they have been doing for 3 years. John Gil rests on the earth, entirely defeated as he grits his teeth. He curses his fortune for encountering this guy. He remembers the gossip that Tang Gukrin is a foundling brought up like a grandson by the Grand Elder and is incredibly powerful. John Gil believed he had an opportunity if he hit first, but he couldn't even grasp his collar. Now he understands he is going to perish. However, he abruptly remembers Tang Yenmyung. The idea that he didn't encounter our hero actually calms his thoughts, and he begins chuckling. Tang Gukrin inquires why he is chuckling in this circumstance. John Gil Gil exhales and states he just remembered someone more frightening than Gukran. Naturally, Tang Gukran feels offended. He states he will need to render himself even more frightening and chooses to reveal a secret since John Gil is passing away regardless. He discloses he is genuinely a covert agent from the Black Death Alliance, declaring he is from the Great Darkness Silent Sword faction and his actual name is Mac Injuk. He lifts his blade to butcher John Gil, but just then, Mac halts. He senses something unusual in his nerves and cannot shift, so he ponders what is happening. From the side, our lad enters. He states he sensed a presence and came to investigate, then gazes at the boy on the ground and remarks it is a recognizable face. Ultimately, he inquires John Gil if he has recovered from the previous occasion they battled, but John Gil, perplexed, inquires who he is. The setting transitions to the past, where a young lad stands before an aged man. The boy inquires if the man desires him to become a spy for the Sichuan Tang family, and the elder replies affirmatively. He informs the boy that with his skill, feigning to be an orphan for a few days, should entice someone to take him in. He additionally clarifies that the Tang family will shortly initiate the young clan leader contest to diminish their numbers. Thus, if the boy comes back after finishing the task, everyone in the family will recognize him. Back in the current time, Mac reclines on the earth, entirely battered. He clenches his lip and senses like his insides are melting, therefore pondering what our lad did to him. Our fellow strolls toward John Gil, who gazes at him and inquires if he is truly Yen Mayong. Our main character inquires if he must smash John Gil's face into the earth again to demonstrate it, prompting John Gil to pause before affirming it is truly him. Yen Mayong indicates Tang Gukran and inquires if that individual admitted to being a spy, to which John Gil exclaims yes. Our protagonist understands this spy was the follower he detected prior to entering the mountain. Consequently, he chooses to seize him initially. He continues to extract a venomous needle from Tang Gukran's neck, departing John Gil astonished. He inquires if our main character covered the needle with venom and wonders that such a tiny needle triggered such a response. John Gil proposes they ought to cleanse the spy and question him regarding his stance, but our lad declines. You observe if the agent is from a sinister group like the Black Death Alliance. His intentions are evident, so there is no necessity to cure him. John Gil gazes at our protagonist and comments that he has transformed significantly, adding that Yen Mayong appears unbothered by everything. Unexpectedly, John Gil bends and genuinely expresses regret for the animosity between them in the past. Our fellow grins and informs him to overlook it because he doesn't linger on the past. Nevertheless, John Gil abruptly yells a caution. Behind Yen Mayong, Tang Gukran jumps up for a final assault, shouting that he will bring them along to demise. Tang Gukran rushes down, but our main character disappears. Tang Gukran arrives on vacant terrain, perplexed, while our protagonist emerges behind the spy. He states he typically doesn't spare a fading man, but since Tang Gukran insisted on assaulting, he will eliminate him without a remnant. Our lad places a hand on Tang Gukran's shoulder and inquires if it wouldn't be preferable to have no body to tidy up later. Tang Gukran's eyes brim with tears as he considers our boy is merciless. He falls and perishes immediately. John Gil observes in amazement, believing it is astonishing. He understands the spy was a leading competitor employing the formidable Shadow Quiet Blade method, yet our champion conquered him effortlessly. Yen Mayong gazes at John Gil and inquires what he plans to do now that it is merely the two of them. John Gil states he will yield, but he doesn't know the exit. Our lad slashes his blade in midair, slicing open an opening in the arrangement, then instructs John Gil to depart and states there is no necessity for a farewell. John Gil appreciates him for saving his life, and then our main character disappears. John Gil grins and hopes him well. In the meantime, at the Dark Moon Sword sect base, the elder possesses a broken spiritual orb. He ponders what in the world is occurring. Understanding the bead inserted in his youngest son has shattered, indicating his son is deceased. He contemplates his son, born a helper, but more skilled than anyone. To shield the boy from his envious spouse, he dispatched him to reside as an undercover agent in the Tang family. Due to this, the elder tightens his fists in fury. He senses he hasn't accomplished much as a parent, so he pledges to resolve this resentment. He yells commands for all followers to get ready for exit to Gangdong Mountain, determining the moment to take down the Tang family is close. He proclaims that no one carrying the Tang surname will come back alive. Returning to the mountain, it is evening. Our lad consumes his food before a blaze, but he senses something is amiss. He has sprinted day and night but hasn't encountered a person, so he understands it doesn't add up unless the arrangement has been altered to stop individuals from getting near him. He concludes that the last survivor must be collaborating with the Jiggle family and scoffs at their haughty scheme to amplify power within the Tang family. Our lad reclines on the earth gazing at the moon, believing the night nighttime sky is lovely and hoping he could display it to his mother. He contemplates how she is faring, then drifts off. However, Tang Young Ryong is concealing himself close by. She observes him resting and is pleased she ultimately discovered someone. She remembers that she asked to meet the final survivor, and she gazes at our main character, believing he is attractive. She ponders if he is teacher Jiggles' niece and determines it's a shame about his visage, but he must perish. With that, she ingests a tablet and emits a container of toxic vapor, dispersing the fragrance toxin around him. She plunges her blade into venom and instructs the slumbering boy not to hold it against her. She lifts the knife to hit, but abruptly our hero speaks. He inquires if she is certain she is ready, then seizes her neck before she can shift. Ryong coughs as he raises her into the air. Our lad inquires if she is the one collaborating with the Jiggle family, blaming her for concealing herself in a secure location while others battle. He insists on understanding what agreement she struck. Ryong grits her teeth in astonishment, understanding he was aware she was arriving, but our main character tells her to respond swiftly if she wishes to inhale. Tang Young Ryong laments losing her weapon in fear, understanding it is now too distant to recover. Our lad gazes at her and abruptly comprehends who she is. He understands she is Tang Young Ryong, leaving the girl astonished and pondering how he knows her name. Well, after all the difficulties she created for him, how could he overlook? In reality, he inquires if he ought to deform her whole visage this time. Meanwhile, within the control chamber, instructor Jiggle Chongshin is exasperated. He believes his strategy has entirely collapsed because number 28 sliced through the arrangement, making it hard to see distinctly. Chongshin observes that number 10 was rapidly removing rivals, but number 28 terminated him immediately. As a result, Chongshin understands that if number 2 Ryong confronts number 28 now, she will be defeated. He concerns that if number 28 triumphs, the Jiggle family's schemes will be shattered. Abruptly, he perceives a tremendous quantity of power flowing into the structure. He looks nearer and observes a whole army from the Dark Moon Sword Sect. The Dark Moon Sect chief, Yanjian Song, converses with Mak In-hu, mentioning they have delivered more than 300 soldiers, comprising elders and followers. He inquires if employing full strength against the arrivals of the Tang family is going too far, but Mak In-hu asserts it is essential. Since Gangdong Mountain is so near to their domain, they must annihilate the Tang family entirely. He asserts that if their troops were fewer, they would be vanquished. Yanjian Song consents but inquires about the informant. Clearly exasperated, Mak In-hu states the agent did not succeed, noting it was an individual he valued. With that, he commands everyone to cease conversing and exit. Chongshin observes all of this through the formation and ponders why the Dark Moon sect leader is present. He understands there must have been an informant and contemplates notifying the Bongwai Brigade for action. However, he hesitates and a grin emerges on his face. He understands that if he permits the trespassers to eliminate number 28, his scheme stays unnoticed and the Tang family will never realize the Jiggle family was engaged. That is the reason he chooses to permit the intruders in. Back in the woods, our main character grips Ryong by her throat. She grits her teeth, only now understanding he is Ma Yong, and she berates herself for not identifying him. While she searches for an opportunity to employ her concealed weapon, our lad gazes at her fallen knife. He inquires if the crimson material on it is toxic, observing he has never encountered such a vivid red toxin before. Ryong believes he is sidetracked, so she retrieves a bottle from behind her rear and attempts to hurl it at him. However, our main character seizes her hand mid-air. He reprimands her for making futile efforts instead of responding, then grabs the bottle from her grasp and inquires if it is the same toxin as the one on the knife. When Ryong declines to speak, our lad tosses her to the earth and seizes her face. He inquires if they ought to revisit the past, prompting Ryong to yell for him to release her. Our lad instructs her to open her mouth, but she declines, stating she detests it and vowing to speak. Nevertheless, our main character begins shifting the bottle toward her lips, stating she may as well sample it to understand what type of toxin it is. She shrieks in fright and ultimately admits. She discloses it is named Fire Dragon Venom, one of the Tang family's 10 toxins. Our lad hesitates because he recalls that the 10 poisons ought not to be employed carelessly. He is excited to discover it is authentic, believing this is a remedy for him and that allowing her to ingest it would be a squander. Ryong pleads with him to allow her to leave since she admitted, even proposing to yield or assist him battle the other contenders. Protagonist disregards her and grips her face tighter, declaring he hasn't received the complete response yet. He insists on knowing if she is collaborating with the Jiggle family and what assurances were given, threatening to force-feed her the toxin if she falters. Ryong instantly reveals the reality. She acknowledges they suggested a matrimonial partnership leadership and clarifies that the Jiggle family desires to unite with the Tang family to ensure fidelity. Our lad comprehends. He recognizes the Jiggle family intends to solidify their position by wedging the forthcoming young clan chief. He then presumes Ryong enthusiastically embraced the suggestion. Suddenly, our main character consumes the toxin without reluctance. Ryong screams in terror, inquiring what he is doing, but our lad says he won't hand it to her no matter how she gazes at him. Ryong is frightened, believing that even a form of invincibility cannot endure the 10 toxins. She observes him, anticipating him to incinerate to demise, but our lad merely belches and states it flavors like strawberries. Abruptly, his entire physique erupts into fire. Ryong observes in amazement, but she observes his hold displays no indication of faltering. Soon the blaze vanishes and our main character reverts to normal. He remarks that it abruptly turned very hot, departing Ryong appalled and almost in tears. She understands this is unfeasible unless he has attained the mythical condition of a toxin expert, resistant to all toxins and capable of eliminating with a single exhale. She recalls her grandfather referring to such a domain and inquires if he is a toxin maker. Our boy clutches her face even firmer, irritated that she genuinely meant to end his life with her lethal intent. Subsequent to conquering her, he gazes at his blazing hand. He perceives that the power from the toxin purifying insanity has transformed after absorbing the fire dragon toxin. He feels as though he has perfected the martial discipline of both yin and yang. He appreciates Ryong, noting that he acquired something precious. Abruptly, our main character gazes upward. He observes a massive illumination in the heavens, as if the sun has emerged in the midst of the night, and he senses the breeze gusting quicker. He has no idea what is occurring. Understanding this isn't the contest concluding. He perceives strange presences, scores perhaps more than 300 individuals, and therefore understands something is amiss. He concludes that the Jiggle family must have observed such a large crowd, signifying they intentionally allowed the trespassers into the structure to instigate a slaughter. Our main character grips his venomous darts and grins, considering having practiced targets arrive to him as a twist of fortune. Ultimately, he proclaims that in the goo poison contest, he is the sole one intended to endure. The educator informs the manager of the circumstance. Listening this, he exclaims in astonishment, insisting to understand what he just mentioned about trespassers. Qingxin verifies that it seems there was an infiltrator among them, so Wanjin insists to know if they have recognized the foe and how substantial their troop is. Qingxin feigns uncertainty but states there are more than 300 soldiers commanded by the Dark Moon Sect chief. Naturally, Wanjin is appalled. He questions why the Dark Moon Sect is present and how they discovered the location concealed by the 7-lock Phantom Dome formation. As a result, he determines they need to rush to prevent them. Qingxin behaves worried, asserting he never anticipated this. He clarifies that the trespassers have accessed the inner realm where the goo toxin contest is occurring. Moreover, he cautions Wanjin that they rendered it unfeasible for themselves to interfere within the arrangement. Consequently, they have no option but to depend on the leftover clan children to endure on their own. Within the arrangement, our lad stands high, encircled by numerous lifeless corpses. Reflecting on a short while ago, Mak Inhu stands above the lifeless body of Tang Gukran. He laments that his youngest offspring couldn't even pass away a typical death due to the toxin. Meanwhile, Yongsang verifies they have entered accurately. He observes the body has puncture marks and evident indications of a unilateral conflict. Mak Inhu yells to his soldiers, commanding them to investigate meticulously and locate the Tang family vermin. He orders them to inform right away upon finding and proclaims that no one from the Tang family will endure. Promptly afterward, one team leaves to explore the vicinity. A follower inquires of his mentor if the chief appears disturbed today, observing he typically shows lethal intent openly. The master believes the corpse they observed could have been the agent positioned by the leader. Furthermore, the master remarks the sole wound was a puncture mark on the neck, which is perplexing unless the needle was smeared with immediate death toxin. He cautions his apprentice that the Tang family aims at existence itself, irrespective of combat skill. Thus, he advises the apprentice to be wary of concealed arms. The follower consents to remember it, but abruptly a pin pierces his neck, and he drops to the earth immediately. The expert is perplexed, curious about the origin of the assault. He notifies everyone, yelling it as a surprise attack and commanding them to unsheathe their blades. He shouts at the assailant to emerge honorably and cautions his followers not to lower their defenses. Unexpectedly, another individual calls for the master to gaze upward. From the heavens, numerous pins fall like precipitation. The soldiers cannot divert them and are struck all over. Our lad stands amidst the turmoil, grinning, as he thinks the solitary palm-searing toxin method method is extraordinarily deadly against mere infantry. He lifts his hand and employs the vapor method to reclaim all the toxic pins back to himself. He observes that this blend utilizes very minimal internal energy. Subsequently, our main character confronts the heap of lifeless corpses and chooses to search for the team that headed east next. Elsewhere, a man delivers news to Masinhu. Masinhu inquires if everyone is deceased and the man affirms it. He states there were no outside wounds, only needle punctures, indicating they were murdered with potent toxin just like the initial body. Soon, another individual informs from the western observation point that everyone there has been destroyed. Even worse, the report from the east is identical. Masinhu understands no faction has endured. Yansong indicates it has been just over an hour and almost 100 men have succumbed to the same technique. He proposes this might be the act of merely one individual. Masinhu believes that if there were numerous foes, it would be dreadful. But this is evidently a master from the Tang family. Due to this, he senses that they are being pursued. He instructs Yansong to assume control while he personally readies for the surprise attack. Yansong inquires if that is acceptable, but Masinhu asserts he cannot bear to lose more followers and confide the remainder to Yansong. Yansong guides the leftover forces across a river, noticing the uncanny quiet and absence of presence. He understands that with the sun descending, darkness will arrive shortly. He concerns that if they don't locate the attacker by then, they might be destroyed. That is why he determines it is preferable to retreat and reorganize before the harm intensifies. He faces the soldiers and declares they will depart in an moment. Abruptly, a voice inquires who determined that. Above a tree, our main character sits leisurely. He states he wasn't intending on allowing them to leave. Yansong grits his teeth, having no idea when the boy showed up since he sensed nothing. Before Yansong can even respond, all his forces behind him fall apart, punctured by pins. He cannot fathom they perished without a moment to perceive the assault. Our lad leaps down and strolls toward Yansong, who understands this young lad is the primary reason for the slaughter. He ponders how a lad could employ such advanced methods. He observes the needles coming back to our main character and therefore suspects it could be null absorption, a method only elite masters can employ. However, observing our hero collect the needles instead of striking again, Yansong speculates the method expends a great deal of internal energy. He labels our boy conceited for stepping up instead of utilizing astonishment. Yansong grins and states he never heard of a young lord like him in the Tang family. In reply, our lad places the needles in his pocket. He states it doesn't concern him if Yansong has heard of him, because a man fated to perish today doesn't need to know his identity. Naturally, Yansong becomes furious. His veins protrude from his skin. As he yells that the young man is in a rush to perish, he energizes, ripping his garments as his physique expands. Then, he yells and delivers a huge blow to crash our boy into a wall. But our main character deflects the strike with his hand. As the forces collide, Yansong is astonished that his utmost strength was merely obstructed. Our guy grins and states surely this isn't his utmost strength. Ultimately, he informs Yansong he will provide him time, so he ought to attempt to elevate it to the actual peak. In the history of Yansong, following the Spearpoint sect, one of the 9 groups succumbed to the Black Death Alliance. Yansong gladly accompanied them. On the day he encountered the alliance leader, his expertise, the summit trembling staff method, was altered. The alliance chief informed him the title was too feeble and renamed it the Celestial Swift Palm. However, a youth is now surpassing that method. Back in the current time, our main character deflects Yansong's punch. As they collide, Yansong becomes uneasy by the serene look on our boy's face. Our champion meanwhile contemplates his strength. He understands that fire dragon venom holds the exhalation of a fire dragon. When one governs this venom with a toxic aura, it generates a power akin to sword force. While sword force slices through anything, venom force absorbs into everything. Our fellow opens his eyes, which shine crimson like a flame dragon. Due to this, Yansong battles to repel the energy, gritting his teeth and pondering what this astonishing yang energy is. Our champion then employs the burning glaze method. The warmth is so extreme that Yansong's physique immediately transforms into solid coal and he collapses to the earth, lifeless. Mayong believes that venom infused with warmth ought to be named blazing demon power. Subsequently, he inquires of the soldiers who wishes to perish in flames next. The soldiers are terrified because their commander passed away so effortlessly. Our main character informs them that since he has no plan of allowing them exist, they ought to simply perish swiftly. Unexpectedly, the Dark Moon Sect chief, Mak Inhu, advances. He unsheathes his blade and yells in fury, blaming our lad for slaying his youngest child, the informant, and declaring that our lad won't even depart cinders behind. Mak Inhu commands his forces to disperse and utilize the Charyun formation to encircle him. Instantly, the soldiers encircle Mayong from every angle. They caution one another to be cautious of toxins and concealed arms while Mak Inhu reflects on his defeats. He experiences the anguish of losing so many followers and his son. Consequently, he concludes our individual must be removed so their offerings aren't in futility. Our lad glances about and believes the Charyun formation brings to mind training. Back then, he employed the spinning turmoil dance, but he chooses to experiment with something distinct this time. Abruptly, our main character's form turns indistinct. One adversary yells that he vanished and instructs everyone to remain vigilant, yet they cannot detect his actions at all. Our main character navigates among them, reducing them one by one. Meanwhile, Mak Inhu cannot comprehend what is occurring. He is astonished that he even overlooked our boy's activity and puzzles over what our hero's genuine identity is. Mayong ultimately resurfaces. In reply, one adversary yells in fury and charges at him for murdering his siblings. Our lad lifts his hand and states he will take their blades. By employing the annihilation principle, he breaks their swords into fragments, utilizing merely his hand without even contacting the blades. The man labels him a beast. Unable to comprehend our protagonist shattered their blades without contacting them. Our champion then employs the concept of dispersal to distribute the remnants of shattered blades. Subsequently, he manages the power to cause them to rotate within a specific zone, creating a whirlwind of metallic fragments. The rival screams in terror, believing this is the mythical Tang family method, the 10,000 celestial blossom rain. He yells that it is inconceivable. Abruptly, the whirlwind of fragments strikes the adversaries, slicing them to bits. The slaughter is savage. Our lad acknowledges to himself that it doesn't compare to the strength of the genuine 10,000 heavenly flower rain, but it is sufficient for minor adversaries. That's why he calls this method the Iron Shard Barrage. One by one, the corpses drop to the earth. Our main character gazes at Mak Inhu and inquires if it is at last Mak Inhu's moment to advance. After utilizing his men to deplete our protagonist's energy, Ma Inhu is enraged. He draws out both his blades and advises our protagonist not to get arrogant, stating that with the Tai twin blade method and the silent blade method granted by the Alliance chief, he will crush Ma Yong to powder. Our lad grins and refers to it as a fatal desire. Instantly, Mak Inhu rushes ahead, yelling that he will defeat him. Our lad merely raises his tiny blade. Mak Inhu releases all his techniques, Tai twin blade, silent blade 10 strike, and the art sorrel blade dance. However, every assault appears sluggish to our protagonist. He ultimately becomes uninterested and yawns, which annoys his adversary even more. The scoundrel assaults once more with silent sword strike, but nothing leaves even a mark on our hero. In the conclusion, Mak Inhu is fatigued and panting. He rests on his blade, unable to accept his method faltered against a basic dagger. Boy then disrupts him. He states he possesses some proficiency in swordplay and swiftly understood the rhythm of Mak Inhu's strikes. Ultimately, our guy inquires if the method was meant to be executed this manner, and dark vapors begin emerging from our hero's blade. Observing this, Mak Inhu is frightened and inquires how Ma Yong can utilize the silent sword method. Ma Yong clarifies the method. Since the blade possesses such lethal force, it was evidently crafted with the purpose of slaying. It lacks energy that is challenging to manage. Mak Inhu is perplexed and cannot comprehend this information. You observe, this elderly gentleman was only capable of managing this small maneuver after perfecting the supreme dual sword method. So witnessing this dismiss, it casually doesn't add up. Speaking of this method, our lad recalls that the individual he murdered a few hours ago was also employing this method. He inquires if that signifies Mak Inhu is a member of the Dark Moon Sword faction. Our lad confesses he doesn't know a lot about them, but he is aware they are affiliated with the Black Death Alliance. He clarifies that it is widely recognized the Black Death Alliance alters martial arts to accommodate the user, regardless of what abilities they initially possessed. That is the reason individuals abandon their previous existences to associate with them. Mak Inhu inquires what he is attempting to convey. So our protagonist responds that he is merely disheartened over something as insignificant as this method. He states it is something anyone can replicate as long as they can manage lethal energy. Moreover, he ridicules Mak Inhu. Since the chiefs granted this type of combat skill to him, they must not have had much confidence in him. In reply, Mak Inhu yells insults at him, but our lad disregards him. Since Mak Inhu exerted his utmost, he will demonstrate his genuine capability in response, cautioning him not to be overly astonished. Green power radiates from Mayung's form as he clarifies that for those who have attained a transcendent level, blade length is irrelevant. Instantly, the edge of our lad's knife shines, verdant, and begins to stretch with luminous energy. The view leaves Mak Inhu in complete astonishment. Our fellow then employs the method blade rival, slicing his knife with tremendous force. The effect is so significant that it slices through the mountain and the woods, creating a large cavity in the ground. Subsequently, our main character contemplates openly if the harm is lesser because his physique is not as it was previously. Mak In-hoo cannot comprehend what he is observing. Understanding there is no method a standard sword technique can accomplish this. He understands our protagonist manages the blade energy effortlessly and has attained the ultimate stage. Unexpectedly, our lad inquires with a lethal tone if that is significant. Totally frightened, Mak In-hoo rushes away to evade the assault. The lad finds this old cood irritating. He inquires how Mak In-hoo believes he can escape by merely dashing about. Everything will be finished the instant he is apprehended. However, before striking his sword again, Mayung halts. He determines that as a member of the Tang clan, it only makes sense to eliminate him the Tang clan way. With that, he places his hand beneath his robe and retrieves his rings. Mak In-hoo races frantically through the woods believing this cannot be. He ponders who in the universe brought up such a beast in the disintegrating Tang clan. Abruptly, the bands soar toward Mak In-hoo from the rear, chopping trees and barriers like tofu. Mak In-hoo attempts to divert them, but their velocity and slicing strength frighten him. He understands he cannot eliminate them by fleeing and therefore must battle. He evades and shields, but the bands fracture his blade and slice his form. Ultimately, his limb is sliced. Mak In-hoo stands bleeding but resolute, yelling if the boy is pleased that he obstructed them all. As long as he remains alive, he can strategize for the future, assuming our lad squandered a lot of effort utilizing that ability. But from the front, our lad strolls in serenely. He inquires if he ought to be praising Mak In-hoo, who is astonished that the youngster is not fatigued whatsoever. With a snap of his finger, our boy shouts out all his rings. They float in the atmosphere and indicate toward Mak In-hoo, leaving him to grit his teeth in astonishment. He ponders who the scoundrel is and laments abandoning everything to unite with the Black Death Alliance, only to be vanquished by a lad he couldn't even injure. Ultimately, Mak In-hoo is entirely vanquished as the rings hit him down. The bands come back to Myong's digit, joyful that he captured everyone. He is also pleased he acquired something by trying out various methods, considering it would be pleasant to instruct this to his community once he becomes the leader. Then, he chooses to depart. He has unfinished business to resolve. The elder who propelled his mother into a corner and the Wiggle family who conspired to seize control of the clan. He promises to make everything correct, a tooth for a tooth. He instantly cuts his sword through the structure barrier. Meanwhile, outside the arrangement, Supervisor Wanjin yells if there is truly no method to enter. Instructor Chong Shun expresses regret, clarifying that they rendered it unfeasible to intervene. He feigns that he never anticipated the circumstance to evolve like this, and the additional team members are concerned. However, Chong Shun covertly has malicious intentions. Since the entry is blocked, no one can escape alive. He understands the Dark Moon Sword sect dispatched over 300 troops and thinks even number 28 will struggle to return alive. Chong Shun believes it is a squander of ability, but resolves they cannot be obstructed, hindering the scheme. He comforts himself, reassuring him that the other contenders are the destiny of the clan anyway. But just then, the heavens above the arena fractures. Something unusual occurs. Our lad slices through the arrangement and strolls out. The group members become thrilled. They understood they wouldn't be defeated that effortlessly. Yuri rushes over and embraces our protagonist, inquiring if he is injured anywhere. Our lad jokes that until the contest is finished, she is the sole one who has wounded him. In the backdrop, Chong Shun appears noticeably anxious. Instructor Jiggle Chong Shun is frightened. As far as he is concerned, it is inconceivable that 300 troops couldn't handle one young rascal. From the side, our lad observes Chong Shun's strained expression, but Chong Shun swiftly conceals his demeanor. In the meantime, John Gill gestures at our main character and Myong grins in return. Chong Shun cannot trust it. He remembers how our main character broke the 7-lock Phantom Dome arrangement earlier. Not to mention, the child sliced through a formation intended for combat as if it were nothing. He believes our hero is a beast because typically even a master would be ensnared in it. The boy pivots to gaze at Chong Shun. Although he understands he could eliminate the instructor right now, he chooses to wait until he becomes the leader. Supervisor Wonjin grins and states Myong is ultimately secure. Our lad bows and expresses regret for causing concern, yet he contemplates that he will attend to the seniors in the Tang clan first. Wonjin inquires about what occurred inside and where the remaining individuals are. Just then, the ground begins trembling. The fighters believe it is a tremor, but one of them indicates the sky. Fissure appears in mid-air and illumination streams out. At this moment, Chong Shun is anxious, recognizing the unit holding the formation is deteriorating. As the structure completely collapses, pieces corpses drop off, uncovering the interior. The earth is blanketed with hundreds of bodies. Wonjin examines the outfits and realizes that while some are distinct, the majority belong to the Dark Moon Sword sect. He inquires if our protagonist regarded all these individuals earnestly by himself, acknowledging even he would discover it challenging to manage more than 30 of them. Suddenly, a fighter yells and indicates a particular body. He recognizes the dual sword sheath and understands it is Mak Inhu, the faction chief. Observing the dismembered body, Wonjin comprehends even the sect leader was no match for Yen Myong. Our fellow strolls over peacefully and states there were merely numerous of them, so they weren't difficult to handle. Wonjin had anticipated that a great deal of the Tang family. This child, Yen Myong, is already above the standard of a leader. Meanwhile, the other squads converse about the circumstance. They are astonished that Yen Myong handled more than 100 foes, including the renowned Dark Moon Sword sect. They are certain that the leadership role belongs to him. Among them, Moon Chan clenches his teeth in fury. He feels resentful that he turned out to be a burden due to his damaged arm. That's why he despises that Tang Yen Myong, who once was garbage that couldn't master martial arts, has become this powerful. He despises how someone like him has the audacity to ascend beyond. Wonjin disrupts Moon Chan's reflections by announcing that the competition is finishing. He declares the only victor is number 28, Tang Yen Myong, and requests anyone with dissent to step forward. Moon Chan wishes to express something, but Wonjin interrupts him. Since there are no dissenters, he announces that the procedure has finished justly. He commands the fighters to assemble before the victor. Instantly, scores of fighters stand in front of our boy and his group. Aijun states he cannot fathom there are so numerous fighters and feels inundated. Wonjin believes that years after the Tang clan's collapse, a new dignity has ultimately emerged to usher in the resurgence. He then shouts loudly to Tang Yen Myong, designating him as the new leader. Along with Wonjin, 82 individuals kneel down. They bend and welcome the new leader of the Tang clan. Naturally, Yen Myong's group is astonished. They understand that merely by being the leader, he commands so much admiration, and they ponder if they must converse formally with him now. Wonjin wishes that at an age where he is not even 20, our lad can develop sufficiently to restore the clan's standing throughout Sichuan. Our protagonist speaks to them, declaring he understands what they desire. He assures it won't require much time to turn it into a reality and requests them to believe in him. As a consequence, the warriors regard him with admiration, sensing as though he understood their minds. The significance of his statements demonstrates he is the genuine leader. Therefore, they all vow to follow Tang Yen Myong. Our guy informs them to prepare because they are returning to the primary house. As they depart, Munchan observes them. He is enraged, questioning himself why Yen Myong receives everything. That is the reason he pledges to seek vengeance regardless of the cost, even if he must trade his soul to the devil. With a last scowl, he vows to take our boy down. Subsequently that evening, Tai Hyo of the joint sect strolls through the arena, observing the corpses. He states he arrived as soon as he learned of the circumstance. Abruptly, a man drops from the heavens and terrains with a significant effect. It is Hyunso. He reprimands Tai Hyo for going solo, stating that now that he is at the summit, he must behave accordingly. Tai Hyo disregards him and observes the quiet, while Hyunso discovers it is unfeasible to rest beside a heap of bodies. He observes the strange aspect is that over 300 individuals were slain. He ponders if it is due to an ancient eagle being superior to a youthful crow, alluding to the Tang family's former prominence. However, he remembers there were less than 100 relatives on the mountain. Tai Hyo concurs it is odd, clarifying that the mountain is an exposed region, so they ought to have heard of something this significant occurring. Hyunso indicates the Tang family could be relocating while intentionally evading them. He ponders why they would conceal this, particularly since they dispatched treasures in recognition of the tournament. Then, Tai Hyo inspects a corpse. He ponders if the Tang family's weapon method has truly diminished this much and inquires how many individuals were slain by a sword blade. Hyunso is perplexed, so Tai Hyo rectifies him, yelling that it wasn't a sword but a short blade. He inquires if Hyunso understands these remains are the handiwork of a single individual. Tai Hyo states his vision cannot be misled. He clarifies that the majority of corpses exhibit indications of being overcome by a practiced sword method, but there are no indications of expertise, which is why the slashes are scattered everywhere. However, observing those who couldn't even unsheathe their arms means they were handled in an instant. Ultimately, Tai Hyo concludes there cannot be numerous individuals with abilities like this. He decides he must encounter this person and announces they are going to Sichuan. Hyunso inquires of his mentor if they are truly heading to Sichuan, as he fears about unintentionally encountering the murderer. Tai Hyo sneers, inquiring if Hyunso has overlooked that he has attained the summit. He is assured that it won't be challenging to defend himself, while Hyunso is also concerned about himself. Tai Hyo asserts that even if the murderer is an idiot, he wouldn't reluctantly initiate a confrontation with him. Hyunso exhales, realizing he cannot overcome his master's obstinacy. Instead, he proposes they return to their tribe first to notify the leader. Tai Hyo grins and consents, noting that presently the Black Death Alliance is in the south, the Infernal Cult is in the west, and matters are difficult for the United Sect. As Hyunso observes his master leave, he suspects Tai Hyo intends to visit the Tang family to strike a bargain. His lord desires the Tang family to handle the Black Death Alliance and subsequently conquer the demonic sect. However, Hyunso thinks the Tang family has been destroyed for a while, so he questions whether things will proceed as intended. He wishes there won't be a necessity to employ his demon sword method. Meanwhile, in a chamber, Elder Samu Jangro inscribes a charm on paper. Just then, a man announces that the fighters have returned the contest entrance. The senior believes the contest concluded quicker than anticipated, and therefore presumes Tang Young Ryong triumphed effortlessly with her abilities and the fire dragon toxin. But the man falters and indicates that he does not observe Miss Ryong among those who came back. Consequently, the elder exclaims in astonishment. At the primary entrance, two sentinels converse about who the victor could be. They are astonished to observe a sizable crowd nearing, guided by our main character with his group and the other contestants. The sentinels identify the Tang family emblem and promptly understand the contest is finished. News circulates rapidly throughout the town, and all individuals assemble, astonished that the contest concluded so quickly. They are thrilled to witness the victor, while the audience ponders who the attractive man guiding the group is. The girls flush, observing Yang Myong's visage. Unexpectedly, a man in the throng yells for his daughter, Soy, and the girl gestures to her father. The father is grateful, stating he heard numerous individuals perished. Everyone gathers with their family members. However, some guardians cannot locate their offspring and begin weeping. Myong observes them and understands a mother must also be concerned about him. He ponders if she will identify him and is intrigued by her demeanor. Meanwhile, Yuri indicates a man with spectacles. She presents her father, who operates in the General Administration Division. Boy playfully inquires if she is already requesting him to look after her father, to which Yuri confesses she cannot pass up such a chance. While the girl is too sincere, Yuri then clarifies her father has abilities but hasn't been elevated because he doesn't ingratiate himself with anyone. He believes that isn't poor and therefore concludes that individuals who aren't near to the seniors will be beneficial when he assumes control. He intends to locate individuals on his side. Just then, Tang Kism, a household official, enters exclaiming great job to the fighters and the Jigal family. Instructor Chong Shin promptly bows to Kism, inquiring if he has been well. Kism chuckles seeing Chong Shin hasn't altered. He appreciates the Jigal family for aiding the primary residents. He then taps Chong Shin's shoulder, stating it was a comfort to have the 7-lock Phantom Dome arrangement. He thinks the participants were secure because of it. Although Chong Shin is aware it was damaged, he behaves nonchalant. Kism then declares that he has notified the elders, so they should proceed to the elder house now. He continues to send away the fighters to relax, but Overseer Wu Jin interjects, stating they will not be visiting the senior residents. Kism spins around puzzled. In reply, Wu Jin presents himself as the interim chief of the honor guard. Kism inquires if he misheard, so Wu Jin asserts that the terms of the contest indicate the Stealth and Poison Hall as the location of the victor. He contends it is logical to proceed there instead of the elder residence. Naturally, Kism grits his teeth and yells. He inquires how a simple fighter presumes to discuss values in front of the leader in charge, and then commands them to scatter right away or confront consequences. Wu Jin understands they are being instructed not to respond to the elders, which was an anticipated opposition. Suddenly, our main character strolls over to Kism and inquires who in the universe Kism is. Our lad presents himself as the champion, Tang Yunmeng. Later, Kism informs the elders about the situation. The seniors inquire who the victor is, and he pauses before disclosing it is Tang Yunmeng. In reply, an elder becomes furious. He pounds his hand on the table, yelling that it is unfeasible. He is in shock how that rascal could triumph over the fire dragon toxin. Other elders state that even their apprentices, like Gukrin, were defeated. Moreover, Elder Sayok believes it is unfeasible for Yunmeng to have defeated Gukrin in merely 3 years. He believes our main character employed a ruse, and a senior proposes they ought to uncover the truth of it. The fourth elder concurs, inquiring how Yunmeng defeated every possible contender and insisting to interrogate the boy. However, Kism wavers. He recalls the moment at the entrance. Flashback to the entrance. Our main character informed Kism that solely the family leader can command the successor. He mentioned that merely because the leader's role is diminished, it doesn't signify the elders can command in their position. Kism demanded on penalizing them as demonstrators, yelling that Yunmeng hasn't been formally recognized yet. He feared his role would be at risk if someone with a resentment towards the elders became the leader. Consequently, he cautioned Yunmeng not to irritate the elders. Suddenly, Yunmeng lifted his gaze, shining green with lethal intent. He erupted with tremendous vigor that struck Kism. Kism was frightened, understanding he would perish if he annoyed the boy further. Ultimately, our lad announced that regardless of what the defeated seniors believe, they will adhere to the conditions of the contest and proceed to the stealth and poison chamber. He informed Kism to notify the elders that now, with the contest nearing its conclusion, their rule is also finished. When Kism informs the elders everything, they are enraged. In a burst of fury, one elder shatters the table and two yelling, "How dare that idiot behave this way?" Another elder proposes that this could indeed be beneficial, particularly since Tang Yunmeng hasn't been formally acknowledged as the leader yet. Due to this, he recommends they remove him from his role to impart a lesson. The four seniors concur to head to the stealth and toxin hall to evaluate his ability, and one senior promptly instructs the fighters outside to get ready to depart. He calls the leader of the Azure Dragon Squad, who comes and agrees to the order. The elder then promises to reveal that scoundrel the genuine truth of the Tang family, and who the true rulers are. In the meantime, at his residence, Tang Joki is astonished. He inquires Mayung if he truly triumphed in the contest, and our fellow verifies it. Joki thinks that our lad's energy is exceptionally powerful, and that his sibling would be delighted. Nevertheless, another individual is furious. It is Tang Jihyuk, the toxin monarch and parent of Moonshan. He inquires if Mayung truly believes he triumphed, prompting our individual to recall Jihyuk's statements from 4 years prior. Back then, Jihyuk warned to make him and his mother compensate for what occurred to Munshan's arm. But returning to the present, our protagonist remembers how Jihyuk boasted back then. He cautions Jihyuk to be cautious with every term and action while residing at the Tang residence. With a burst of lethal intent, our guy states that otherwise, Jihyuk could potentially incapacitate his son's other arm as good. Outside the residence, Supervisor Wu Jin remembers Kaisam stating our champion is the offspring of the venomous phoenix. He recalls inquiring our hero regarding it previously, though our lad mentioned they could talk about it afterward. As he waits, Wu Jin reflects on the clash with Heaven's radiant demon lord. He remembers how family fighters battled for their existence. Specifically, when the Tang family was failing, men came carrying the leader of the former lord. The foe advanced, ignoring venom and demise, so Wu Jin recalls asking assistance from the elders to counter the assault. However, the elders declined, asserting that if they collapsed, the family would encounter ruin. Wu Jin thinks that if they had assisted, they might have diminished the harm. Instead, the seniors accused everything on the toxic phoenix, asserting she nearly ruined the family. Abruptly, Wu Jin understands the venomous phoenix consented to being ousted to safeguard her young child. He faces his soldiers and states he thinks they observed who the present leader is, announcing that to those who did not succeed in their duties that day, another opportunity has arrived. But just then, someone yells, "Halt," from behind. Inside the cabin, our protagonist observes the disturbance and chooses to venture out. Outdoors, the seniors and their forces arrive, and one elder inquires if they believe they can challenge the council and remain secure. Wu Jin is astonished that the elders activate their own resources, particularly when the elder insists they deliver Yang Myong to him. Our fellow steps out, stating there is no need to worry since he is already present. Tang Joke indicates that the third elder and others have come, but the elder yells that our hero has the audacity to assert the leader's position without consent. As our fellow descends the stairs, he declares he has already demonstrated his eligibility by winning. He states they are confirming equity at the stealth and poison hall and inquires what additional requirements they have. In reply, the elder yells about our protagonist's unpleasant character and rude speech. Wu Jin attempts to intervene, but the elder cuts him off. He insists our boy admit all that occurred in the exam if he wishes to survive. Our champion responds that he heard what occurs in the contest is unimaginable. He then ridicules them, inquiring if the family regulations are milder than anticipated or if they believe he obtained an unjust benefit. That's when the elder discloses he heard from the Jaggle Lord that there was disruption from the Dark Moon Sword sect and nearly 300 evildoers. He contends that with external interference, the contest cannot be just. However, our lad clarifies that Tang Gukrin and Tang Young Ryong eliminated other contenders, and he concluded the contest by eliminating them. He contends their involvement was post the contest, so equity isn't a concern. The elder becomes furious and inquires who murdered whom. Our main character instructs him to head head to Gangdong Mountain himself to examine the corpses. Promptly, the elder instructs a leap and rush toward our boy with tremendous velocity. Electricity hits the region, prompting everyone to yell in panic. However, our lad obstructs the elder's hand. He serenely labels him a fool and inquires if he struggles to accept that his granddaughter is deceased. The third elder cannot fathom his assault was thwarted with merely one hand. He contemplates how his demon-slaying toxin produced vision and sound upon touch, and therefore ponders if our lad has exceeded his inner power, but he swiftly rejects it as unfeasible. The elder readies for another assault and yells, questioning how our lad dares to ridicule an elder. In reply, our main character takes out a toxin container he retrieved from Ryong. The elder inquires where he obtained it, so our protagonist queries him in return if he understands what it is. He discloses it is the toxin container the elder provided to his granddaughter, and then our guy tosses the bottle down. It breaks and a massive fire explosion occurs. Our lad clarifies that if it were merely a straightforward poison vial, one might disregard it. However, this is one of the Tang family's 10 toxins. Manager Wu Jin is astonished and inquires if the substance could be mythical toxin. Mayung verifies it is referred to as fire dragon toxin, which leaves Wu Jin astonished. He observes the intense blazing energy as the bottle ignites and understands the storage overseen by the third elder was truly breached. The elder is entirely unsettled. Our champion then faces Wu Jin and inquires if the 10 toxins are so insignificant that they can be utilized for selfish desire. Wu Jin states absolutely not, clarifying that it is perilous enough to confront even the most adept fighters. Since the formula is missing, the leftover toxins are more precious than gold. Thus, he determines that utilizing them for selfish benefit deserves harsh retribution. Instantly, the other elders yell in objection. They inquire how Wu Jin has the audacity to refer to harsh punishment for a clan elder and command the guards to apprehend him. Main character interrogates them if they believe possessing the title of elder enables them to bypass clan regulations. He guarantees the elder he will at minimum perish with dignity. And with that, our lad employs a fire method. The elder's form transforms into stone and breaks apart onto the earth, departing everyone astonished and frightened. Our champion is wishing that the elder's granddaughter anticipates him in the afterlife. He refers to him as a dishonest elder who has no authority to evaluate the family leader. Only he will determine where he stands. While Wu Jin believes it is absurd yet remarkable how our hero stands so confidently before the elders, he understands the destiny of the Tang family may shift here. Another elder becomes furious and commands his soldiers to assault, yelling for them to capture our hero at once. However, our lad converses with the Grand Elder, Tang Suk Yung. He inquires if the Grand Elder is aware that his disciple jeopardized the family, but the Grand Elder questions what he is referring to. Our lad asks if he truly didn't know his disciple was an informant for the Dark Moon Sword sect, at which the Grand Elder exclaims that it is absurd and blames our guy for setting him up. However, the boy highlights that the Dark Moon Sword sect trespassed into the contest zone, but the Grand Elder requires proof of collusion. Unexpectedly, Mayong states he will inform him. From the rear, Zhang Gil, the vice director's offspring, advances. He removes his robe and discloses he is the only witness. Zhang Gil clarifies that prior to encountering Mayong Yung, he battled with Tangguk Rin and received these injuries, displaying the gashes all over his body. He asserts that these injuries cannot be inflicted by toxins or covert methods, but by a sword technique. Moreover, he states he didn't comprehend at the moment, but it was probably a double-edged sword method. The Grand Elder attempts to create a justification. However, other seniors interject. One states it is not just conjecture, remembering observing the apprentice employ a sword method from afar. He observes the injuries on the corpses were very akin to Zhang Gil's injuries, which Zhang Gil verifies. He states that prior to Tang Guk Rin attempting to murder him, he admitted he was an agent named Mak Injuk. As a result, the elders whisper among themselves, remembering the gossip about a rejected illegitimate child named Mak Injuk born to a servant. They understand it is accurate, so our protagonist turns to Zhang Gil and expresses gratitude for coming forward. Zhang Gil smiles and says he owes our boy his life, so it is only right to repay him. By now, the Grand Elder is entirely unsettled. He understands his apprentice truly was an informant. However, he thinks his own security is more crucial now. He yells to the other seniors to obstruct our champion and retaliate for the third elder, but our lad interrupts, cautioning them not to behave impulsively since proof has been shown. The Grand Elder asserts he wasn't aware of anything and contends his circumstance is distinct from the third elder. In reply, our hero inquires if his position is so trivial that he can merely disregard it. He inquires if Tangakrin became the family leader and handed the clan on to the Dark Moon Sword sect. Would the Grand Elder assert ignorance then? He refers to it as reckless, prompting the Grand Elder to yell for him to pause. But before the Grand Elder even realizes it, our guy severs his weapon. Everyone is astonished. Our main character informs the Grand Elder he cannot evade the allegation of sheltering a spy. He clarifies that typically his Dantian should be eliminated to impair his combat skills, but since there is no evidence of conspiracy, the penalty concludes here. The Grand Elder murmurs gratitude for the leniency. However, he is not considering naively. He believes our lad is too quick to notice and feigning to halt the hemorrhaging. He removes a concealed toxin. In his grasp, the Grand Elder clutches a vial of shapeless venom. It is one of the Tang family's 10 toxins, transparent, scentless, and flavorless. Although it is not as powerful as the original, it is a variant he developed over half his lifetime. Ultimately, he pledges to eliminate our lad without him even realizing what struck him. The Grand Elder readies to utilize the concealed toxin. However, our lad observes it instantly. With a quick movement, he severs the Elder's remaining hand, the one grasping the toxin. Another Elder yells in indignation, inquiring what insanity this is. He reminds our lad that he vowed compassion moments earlier and questions if Mayung still asserts the entitlement to become the family leader after this. The lad merely urges them to gaze at the detached hand on the earth. Everyone gazes downward, only to notice the toxin container beside the detached hand. The container is shattered and fluid spills out. The lad indicates that the Grand Elder tainted his own circulation for a frantic assault, describing it completely shameful. The Grand Elder, reclining on the earth, cries out for the family leader to save him. But our champion lifts his hand, swirling with emerald energy. He proclaims that Tang Sok Yung tried to murder the family leader and disrupt the clan. Therefore, he considers him a betrayer and declares the penalty is harsh. Displaying no compassion, the child swings his hand, and the Grand Elder's head is severed immediately. Subsequent to this, everyone is astonished and frightened. Our main character speaks to the surviving elders, cautioning that they are not beyond the Tang family's regulations. If any surviving elder disregards the family's rule by exploiting their status, he will personally administer justice. He acknowledges the Tang family is delicate and could fall apart at any instant. However, he guarantees one thing. He will make certain the members are not subjected to the danger of wicked sects or the sinister cult. He pledges they can reside in tranquility in Sichuan. Then, he faces Wu Jin's forces and the other contenders and inquires, not the seniors, but all. Do they recognize him as the legitimate family leader? Later that evening, at Tang Jihe's home, an elderly woman hurriedly enters to share the news. Tang Jihe, our son's mother, requests her to relax and articulate slowly, asking if Yen Myong truly triumphed in the competition. The woman sheds tears of happiness and verifies he succeeded, adding that everyone at the Stealth and Toxin Hall recognized him. She is pleased to declare that he is developing wonderfully. Jihe weeps, longing for Tang Long Ruyong to be alive to receive this news. Meanwhile, our main character is occupied. He wished to hurry to his mother, but there are heaps of duties to manage first. Consequently, he remains in a conference gathering. Tang Jihe declares that according to the family leader's instructions, following occurrences will be managed at the Stealth and Poison Hall. Moreover, the crucial choices will necessitate the family headcore endorsement. Effectively, the authority possessed by the elders is conveyed to the Stealth and Poison Hall. The elders appeared unhappy, yet none overtly displayed discontent. Abruptly, Elder O voices his opinion. He acknowledges our protagonist is remarkable, but highlights his experience is not yet extensive, proposing they serve as a regent until the family leader completes maturing. Our lad concurs that Elder O's statements are logical. However, he realizes they merely wish to exploit his inexperience to maintain their authority. He proposes determining the regency later and finishes the transfer of power for the time being. Subsequently, the inquiry confirms the trafficking of the fire dragon toxin by the third elder was accurate, and uncertainties emerge regarding the Elder Council's competence. Consequently, the oversight of the 10 poisons is delegated to the Stealth and Poison Hall. The seniors, having forfeited the majority of their power, are left with solely their individual military troops. Our lad declares that the armed forces will persist in being overseen by the elders. Nevertheless, from this point forward, the elders must shoulder the expense of sustaining them individually. Naturally, the seniors are evidently dissatisfied. Our individual adds that if there is a budget assigned through the vice director, it ought to be eliminated. Since the direct command squad and sovereign spirit squad lost their connection due to the demise of the Grand Elder, no one has assumed responsibility. Consequently, our hero merges them into the Shadow Squad and assigns them to the Stealth and Poison Hall. Their objective shifts to outside protection, and their wages are modified to align with current sentinels. Some soldiers express express dissatisfaction with the reduced compensation and rank, so our lad confronts them. He desires them to overlook the advantage they once possessed because their armed force was overlooked. He cautions them that if they don't wish to be disregarded, they better accomplish their responsibilities. Moreover, he threatens harsh consequences for overlooking responsibilities or creating discord. With that, he quiets them effortlessly. 2 days afterward, Instructor Jigal Changshun and other educators bow in front of our boy. The instructor refers to him as family leader, though internally, Changshun is anxious. He understands our guy employed power and authority to disband the Elder Council, and concerns that one incorrect term could result in catastrophe. Our lad expresses regret for overlooking them because of his hectic timetable, then states there is something he would like to inquire of them. The teacher gazes at our protagonist and can hardly accept he is the same contestant number 28. Our main character observes the expression and inquires if he is astonished by the attire, clarifying his underlings fretted about dressing suitably. Changshun believes that although our individual isn't formally the leader yet, he is evidently asserting control over the clan. With an uncertain tone, he questions what the demand is. Mayong clarifies he heard the protective arrangements of the Jigal family are extraordinary and asks to have that arrangement set up here to ward off malevolent desires. However, Changshun expresses regret. The primary clan arrangement cannot be set up without his leader's consent. Not to mention, it necessitates exact objects handed down as family heirlooms and several crafting experts to accomplish that. Just then, needles slip from our boy's hand and eco-friendly energy fills the space. The needles hit all the teachers who arrived with the instructor. The teacher pivots, astonished to see everyone on the floor, and he yells why the family leader is doing this. Abruptly, a pin halts inches from the teacher's eye. Our champion discloses he already understands about the agreement with Tangyong Rai Yong, blaming the teacher for opting not to prevent the Dark Moon Sword sect incursion. He inquires if Changshun believed he would merely disregard it. My guy stays steadfast on his position. He insists the instructor set up a defense akin to the Jigal families in the Tang family primary inner quarters. And obtain this, our lad isn't asking. This is a straightforward command, and he wouldn't appreciate hearing no again. He reminds Changshun that the Tang family principle is to repay a grievance tenfold. That is why the elders perished by his hand. He then begins counting to 3 and warns that if he doesn't receive an affirmative reply, he will individually visit the Jigal family and hold the Jigal instructor responsible. He allows the outcomes to Changshun's creativity until the teacher finally snaps. He consents to do it, kneeling and pleading our hero to spare his relatives. Our protagonist grins since he is content. He is wishing that Changshun will advance swiftly. Subsequently, Mirio, Ijuin, and Yuri reach. Well, our lad wanted to contact them sooner, but there was too much to manage. Mirio cautiously inquires why he summoned her, referring to him as household leader. However, our lad chuckles since there is no requirement for formality when it's just them. He desires them to behave as they typically do, but Yuri isn't certain if it is truly acceptable. Instantly, they unwind and place their legs on the table and yell our boy's name boldly. This causes the head to exhale, who desires them to be at least somewhat formal. Proceeding, Yuri extends and inquires why he summoned them, so our protagonist declares he just designated her father as a chief officer. The girls exclaim in astonishment. Mayoung also asserts her father is certainly competent, thus she should grasp this golden chance. Yuri is joyful, but concerns if it is acceptable to affirm it just like that, presuming there must have been resistance. Our protagonist acknowledges quieting the dissenting voices wasn't challenging, yet he cautions her that it would be concerning if her father overlooks his responsibility or misappropriates. Yuri swiftly protects her father, stating he is not that type of individual. So, our main character instructs her to assist her father adjust to the responsibility. Yuri expresses gratitude to him, nearly weeping with feeling. Subsequently, our young man faces Mirio and Ijuin. He summoned them to inquire about their circumstances, as he intends to enlist individuals with outstanding capability who were dismissed by the elders. Mirio states she doesn't truly have anyone to suggest, so our protagonist inquires Ijuin about the Medicine King Hall, mentioning he is connected to it. Ijuin wavers, acknowledging he has been contemplating whether to discuss it because it is connected to Yeonmyeong too. He discloses that the Medicine King Hall was engaged in Yeonmyeong's father's poisoning. Listening to this, Mirio and Yuri are astonished. Yuri pounds her fist on the table, yelling how they dare touch the heir's family. But our champion halts her and requests Ijuin to proceed. Ijuin clarifies that the Medicine King Hall is isolated and autonomous from the Elder Council. They sustain their finances by caring for patients and vending medicine. Moreover, even following the Heaven's Brilliant Demon Lord event, the Tang family endured due to their finances. Ijuin discloses his grandfather was the chief of the Medicine King Hall but was ousted. He clarifies that Yeomyung's dad visited his grandfather each day and stood up against those who defamed the hall. However, since his father lacked inner strength, he endured severe internal injuries from the battles. Listening to this, our lad understands his dad resisted despite all. Ijuan proceeds, declaring the conflict erupted when the deputy leader, Tang Il, made unutterable defamation about Yeomyung's mother. Tang Il attempted to use combat techniques when he lost the debate, but Ijuan's grandfather intervened. Due to that occurrence, Tang Il was removed from being a contender for the next leader. Our fellow inquires if Tang Il held bitterness and tainted his father, and Ijuan verifies it. He adds that Tang Il murdered Yeomyung's father and toppled the Medicine King Hall. Furthermore, he also poisoned Ijuan's grandfather and confined him. Mirio inquires why this wasn't disclosed, but Ijuan states no one would come forward to clarify. He joined the competition to endure, wishing they wouldn't eliminate someone who understood the reality. Abruptly, he begins weeping, stating he is too scared to examine his grandfather's state. He expresses regret for not discovering talent for Yeomyung, but our lad inquires why the deputy leader spared the grandfather instead of eliminating him. Ijuan believes there is a hidden section within the hall, referencing an internal capsule crafted from a legendary being, the 10,000-year blaze fish. Yuri and Mirio are astonished it exists, so our protagonist inquires what an inner capsule is. Ijuan clarifies it boosts inner power, narrating a tale about a lord who attained the fire domain by devouring it. Ijuan cautions that the tablet holds potent toxin. That is why, if consumed without neutralizing it, it results in demise. Moreover, if the toxin is extracted awkwardly, the impact lessens. Our lad inquires if Ijuan's grandfather is the sole one who can maintain the effectiveness without eliminating the toxin, and Ijuan replies affirmatively. He clarifies the present leader intends to ingest the pill, rise to the fire domain, and guide his adherents out of the Tang family to establish his own faction. Naturally, the assembly is furious at the uprising. Myong believes the man is silly to pursue the fire domain without genuine understanding. Our guy appreciates Ijuan for his sincerity and then inquires one more matter. If they eliminate the existing members and reinstate the grandfather, can the Medicine King Hall operate effectively? Ijuan tightens his hand and states it is feasible, trusting he can instruct new hires if required. Our lad grins and states that will suffice. He informs Mirio they will complete her narrative later, then rises and proclaims they will proceed to the Medicine King Hall immediately. Ijuan inquires if our protagonist is certain about not seeing his mother first, but our main character states she will comprehend. He asserts that as a family leader, he cannot abandon a conspirator alone. Above all, his mother wouldn't wish for him to remain passively by after learning what his friends suffered. This causes Ijuan to well up. Ultimately, our lad unlocks the gate and pledges to entirely obliterate the Medicine King Hall that Ijuan utilized to understand. Within the Medicine King Hall, the present Chief Tang Il is irritated. He has learned that Tang Long Riang's offspring has become the family leader, and he finds this concerning. He also frets because Tang Ijuan has not come back to the hall yet. He understands Ijuan is not the kind to forsake his grandfather. However, he presumes Ijuan must appreciate his own existence. Tang Il believes he could eliminate the grandfather anytime, but the issue is the inner pill. To completely absorb the tablet's power and access the fire domain, he requires the elderly man to talk. Sadly, the grandfather won't speak even if he recovers his sanity. Tang Il contemplates extracting the toxin himself, but worries about making a mistake and spoiling the capsule. Just then, a follower rushes in, yelling that the clan leader is present. Tang Il yells for him to be silent. Meanwhile, outside, the Tang clan fighters are defeating the Medicine King Hall sentinels, removing an obstacle for our lad and Ijuan. Later, Ijuan challenges the members and inquires why they are engaging in this. Myong inquires Ijuan if he located his grandfather, to which Ijuan grits his teeth and replies no. He looked everywhere but discovered no sign, so he yells at the men, insisting to know where they concealed his grandfather. The men gaze at one another and assert they don't understand. Instantly, our champion directs supervisor Wu Jin, and Wu Jin severs the heads of the men who deceived. Our lad gazes at the survivors and inquires who they are attempting to fool with those sly eyes. He cautions them not to challenge his tolerance and instructs them to talk. Frightened, they ultimately admit, disclosing that after the competition commenced, the present leader directed them to confine the previous leader in the Noyak. Ijuan is appalled. He inquires how they could confine his grandfather in such a location, clarifying that Noyak was created to segregate contagious patients, but it was shut down because the chilly and humid atmosphere aggravated their condition. Our champion proclaims that he and Ijuan Aijuan are heading into the Noyak and instructs the Bangui brigade to tidy the hall and wait at the entrance. Wu Jin is more than prepared to comply. In the meantime, the Medicine King Hall members plead for compassion. However, Wu Jin and his men unsheathe their blades and begin cutting them. Venturing deep into the cavern, our lad observes the profundity and considers Noyak suits the location flawlessly. They are nearly there until they ultimately arrive at the doorway. Aijuan weeps, dreading they are too tardy, but Mayong informs him not to fret because his grandfather is living. Aijuan inquires if he is certain, and our lad verifies. He discovered him utilizing his green energy. They enter the chamber and Aijuan yells that it is his grandfather. Our champion advances and severs the cage bars. Aijuan sprints to his grandfather and weeps. The elderly man's state is more severe than previously. He believes they utilized the mountains for administering poison, so our guy inquires what else they utilized apart from that. Aijuan enumerates lightning and foolishness toxin, which influences the brain to render one a fool rather than eliminate them. He clarifies the toxin disseminates to the brain, thus rendering antidotes futile without prompt action. Mayong states it will be easy, leaving Aijuan astonished. Our main character instructs Aijuan to keep him stable as he rests a hand on the grandfather's torso. He intends to infuse his inner strength to consume the toxin utilizing the toxin-consuming rage, together with global toxin uptake. Unexpectedly, Grandpa's deep complexion returns to typical human hue and his hand jerks. Aijuan is astonished. Our fellow believes his method has consumed severe toxins numerous times, so he cautiously absorbs the toxin without damaging the delicate body. Aijuan exclaims that his grandfather is inhaling and his appearance has enhanced. Our lad grins and instructs the elderly man to get up, at which the grandfather opens his gaze. He mumbles, inquiring where he is, and then he spots Aijuan and identifies him. Then he glances at our protagonist and inquires if it is Long Ring. Later, after the grandfather completely regains awareness, they clarify everything. The grandfather understands our boy is Long Ring's child and the new family legacy, which our lad verifies. He states he heard from Aijuan that the grandfather cared for his father. With teary eyes, Grandpa states destiny operates in enigmatic manners. He laments that the child who couldn't view his father's visage due to his mistake ultimately ended up rescuing him, and he believes Long Ring's offspring has developed splendidly. He hopes Long Ring could observe this from paradise. As a result, the grandfather inquires if he may dedicate himself to serving the family legacy. Our lad states, naturally, and he removes his green cloak and drapes it on the grandfather. He clarifies he arrived to organize a new role for the leader and Aijuan, then instructs them to depart because individuals are anticipating. When they leave the cave, Tang Il is disturbed. He ponders how the elderly man can endure so steadfastly and yells, inquiring how they can ruthlessly injure the members of the Medicine King Hall. He reminds them that the hall generates the resources to support the Tang family and inquires if they wish for the family to fall apart. Our lad questions if Tang Il intends to act foolish even after observing where they originated, asking if those are his final words. Mayong faces the grandfather and inquires if he has a last message, but the grandfather merely glances aside. Tang Il, having no option, begins sprinting and yells for individuals to step aside. He believes he will perish if he remains, but abruptly a needle pierces Tang Il's neck. His body stiffens. Our champion clarifies that it is the heart-rending flame toxin created by Aijuan, and then inquires if Aijuan's toxin isn't sufficient to substitute Tang Il. He observes Tang Il likely cannot even hear him now, and then Tang Il collapses to the earth, entirely lifeless. Our lad turns to the leftover members and instructs the Bangui brigade to complete the task. As customary, Wu Jin is ready to carry out the commands, and they look after all the members of the Medicine King Hall, efficiently eliminating its corruption entirely. Gossip circulated rapidly within the clan that the Medicine King Hall has collapsed. Due to this, some individuals debate whether the Tang clan can endure without the hall's financing. They question why the new management eliminated the venue backing them. Inside the hall, our champion stands in front of a crimson, flaming sphere. The grandfather cautions him that the Medicine King Hall has collapsed, but the sphere is perilous. Therefore, he inquires if our guy intends to seize it immediately. He proposes delaying a few days for the toxin effect to diminish, but our lad gazes at the sphere eagerly. He appreciates the grandfather, but states he will accept it as it is because he intends to utilize it shortly. He believes that if the toxin is so potent it is apparent to the unaided eye, he cannot dispose of something so valuable. With that, Mayong reaches out his hand to seize the orb. Before he even contacts it, his digits feel like they are dissolving, so he tightens his hand. He understands it has an incredibly powerful blazing toxin, as anticipated of a spirit that resides in lava. However, he observes observes it is nothing in comparison to the fire dragon toxin from earlier. He believes that if a common man consumed this in a crude form, the strength would scorch them from within. As a result, he determines this is the ideal method to evaluate the power of the 10 toxins. He then shuts the box, sensing the strength of the spirit within. Back at the stealth and toxin chamber, Tang Jie arrives to see her son. She walks into the hall and expresses regret for the interruption, informing our hero that she truly got fortunate with her child. Our champion greets her, declaring this location belongs to her initially, so she ought to be here. He gazes at her and believes she is still lovely, although she has matured from concern. Jie rushes to him and embraces him firmly, expressing she is so grateful he came back unharmed. Our man embraces her in return while reflecting on his previous existence. He recalls only contemplating on remorse before his demise, because he had no one to share his joy with. That's why he determines his previous life alone is sufficient for a life brimming with regret, and he pledges that from this moment forward, he must safeguard this existence. Our main character inquires if she encountered the Bangui Brigade, and Jie replies affirmatively. She states they arrived this morning to assist in relocating her belongings, mentioning that everyone was a recognizable face, so it felt somewhat strange. She indicates the container in his grasp and inquires what it is, so our lad says it is something he fetched for her. He opens the container, unveiling the radiant sphere. Naturally, Jie is astonished. She identifies it as the internal tablet from the 10,000-year flame fish, and maintains that it would be appropriate for him, the clan chief, to seize it. However, our lad declines. He states it is just for his mother to accept it, asserting he has no need for the inner pill now. Jie is puzzled and inquires what he signifies. Our champion clarifies he has nothing further to augment with the orb, and then he grasps her hand. Unexpectedly, a surge of vitality emanates from him. Jie is astonished. She senses the extreme warmth and inquires if he truly attained the fire domain. He verifies it, and Jie contemplates how her son is already in the fire domain. She feels she ought to commend him, but she also fears that foes might assault the Tang family if they become aware of this. Noticing her anxiousness, our protagonist speaks softly. He expresses his desire for her to have a lengthy life, encompassing his father's portion, and he requests her to look after him as he matures. He opens the container again and cautions her that the inner tablet is gradually vanishing, so she must rush. Jie nibbles her lip as she understands that even if her offspring is strong, it is instinctive for a mother to desire to shield him. She ultimately consents to accept it, stating it would be impolite to decline his present. She grins and inquires if he is aware of what she was named when she was younger. Our champion inquires what, so she recalls to him she was Sichuan's premier beauty in the Poison Phoenix. When she grasps the box, a tremendous surge of energy radiates from her body. Our lad is surprised. Jie states that is correct. She is the Venomous Phoenix, a designation assigned to the most renowned member of the family. She acknowledges she may not be as talented as him, but inquires if she is still remarkable. Our lad is astonished because he understands his mother was concealing her power. He never anticipated her to nurture all on her own. He understands a fire domain expert can sense even the tiniest motion, thus concealing strength is challenging. He believes that for her to conceal it from him signifies she is genuinely adept, realizing she has already attained the pinnacle condition just prior to the release of energy. Jie starts the farming procedure and attempts to soak in the essence of the inner pill. She understands she must surpass her boundary, but she finds the comprehension challenging. The approach is straightforward: embrace spirituality gradually and assimilate it. However, the tablet is vanishing too quickly, and she frets she will forfeit half of it before she can complete. Suddenly, our lad places his hand on her shoulder. He informs her that illumination does not arise from contemplating it. Instead, he recommends her to take in, examine, and replicate her environment. He states he will provide her a slight nudge, and then he conveys his energy into her. Jie is astonished that Yen Myung's power is merging with the inner pill. She identifies this as the Tang family toxic essential blue luminous heart method, and understands she doesn't need to absorb it gradually. Instead, she can convert the pure energy into something she is accustomed to, and take it all in at once. She concentrates, pondering to herself that she was fortunate with such a wonderful son. Ultimately, the procedure is completed. Our lad steps back and proclaims that with this, his mother has attained the fire domain as well. Everyone is in attendance at the primary structure of the Hall of Dark Poison. However, the atmosphere is strained. Leader of the Poison Lord Unit, Ji Hyukdang, complains about being summoned to a gathering at such an unusual hour. They sense that their time has been disregarded. The fifth elder then inquires Jiao Qi how much longer they must wait. While Yen Myung may be the young lord, it is still excessive to assemble everyone and have them wait. Concealing his frustration, Ji-oki states he will arrive momentarily. Just then, the guards declare the arrival of their young lord. Yen Myung arrives and expresses gratitude to everyone for attending so early, clarifying he wished to make a declaration with everyone there. He moves forward, and therefore, the fifth elder inquires about the declaration. Our lad remembers that the fifth elder was the one who proposed he designate a regent to oversee clan matters until he is older. The elder admits this and inquires if there is someone he has in consideration. In reply, our main character turns and inquires why the elder believes he will select one from among the elders. As the fifth elder begins to ponder who will be chosen, a person steps in, causing everyone to halt. The seniors are astonished to see her, observing it has been over 10 years, and she is still thriving. Observing their responses, our protagonist remarks that no one is fit to guide their tribe except her, and inquires if he is correct. After the elders accuse Ji Hyuk-dang for the incursion of the demons of expansive skies, she was stripped of her rightful position as the clan's successor. However, after 10 years, the phoenix is finally ascending from the debris. The individual is Jahia, who, upon arriving, observes numerous recognizable faces. Reflecting on the prior evening, prior to the regency ceremony, Jihia was enjoying a bath and felt thankful for ascending to transcendence, though she still can't acclimate to the aroma emanating from her body. She felt a little ashamed, believing the maid servant did not merit to see her like that. Then observed she requires additional practice expressing her inner energy. After entering the domain of transcendence, she can now perceive where Yang Myung stands and consequently observes he is near the next level of transcendence. She remembered that even the lord of the unconventional coalition attained transcendence only after reaching 20, and pondered if something remarkable occurred during the elevated selection procedure. She grinned softly, thinking there is still much she and her son must accomplish that evening. Subsequently, our hero applauded and praised his mother on achieving transcendence. They sat together at the dining table, conversing joyfully. Jihia pondered how her son achieved transcendence, as she still cannot comprehend how much he has accomplished at such a young age. Internally, our lad acknowledged it is a legitimate question, but he cannot merely inform her he achieved enlightenment based on recollections from his previous life. Consequently, he chooses to disclose what occurred during the procedure. He inquires of Jihia if she was aware that the third elder trafficked one of the 10 toxins into the examinations. Jihia nods and indicates he provided the fire dragon breath toxin to his granddaughter. To her astonishment, Yang Myung discloses he consumed the toxin. She anxiously inquires how he could perform such a careless act, highlighting that he could have perished. Our protagonist dismisses her worry with a nonchalant chuckle, and then discloses that during the goo toxin conflict, Yang Rue-yong contaminated him with one of the 10 toxins. Unexpectedly, he achieved enlightenment on how to transform poison into internal energy and thus ascended to transcendence. His mother startles in astonishment, considering it intriguing that enlightenment can be reached in various manners. Conversely, our boy is pleased to observe she has embraced his clarification. His mother then indicates that she heard from a maid while bathing that the Hall of Medicine was dismantled and inquires if it was his action. This occasion, our main character chooses to tell the truth, as it also relates to his father. Thus he inclines his head. He clarifies everything to her, and following hearing, Jihia grips her hand, expressing she wished it was not accurate. Then, she anxiously remarks that it must have been difficult for Ijuan and states she has a request to make. When Yang Myung inquires about it, his mother declares that after becoming a widow, she resided in concealment for years, fearing for our boy. That's why she desires to establish a foundation so no one will attempt to assume his role as the future leader. Hearing her, our protagonist grins gently. Now, in the current time, Jihia enters the chamber, igniting whispers about her entrance. Some highlight her youthfulness, while others question if she has recovered her previous energy. Jioki joyfully calls her sister Jihia. Yang Myung then declares that from this instant, his mother, Jihia Dang, will be the new chief of the Dang clan of Sacheon. The fifth elder halts, understanding she has transformed into the new chief instead of a regent. Jihia begins her address, initially expressing gratitude to all for attending. She mentions that although she has become the clan chief, she will solely govern on behalf of her son until he develops. To return his confidence, she is laying the foundation to create a more powerful clan. With that, she starts the morning session by reviewing their schedule. As Jihia determined, the fallen Hall of Medicine is rebranded the Hall of Remedies. Consequently, she designates Hoyal Dang as chief and Ijin as assistant chief. Yuri's father becomes the new leader of the executive council and is instructed to examine the clan's finances. He quickly discovers proof of monetary wrongdoing by the elders, and the retrieved assets are sufficient to replenish the clan's treasury for the time being. Meanwhile, Captain Jihia Dang is removed from duty along with the majority authority of the elders who had been misappropriating clan assets. In reality, anyone misusing the resources is dismissed from their positions. All of this occurs within a few days. Now, our main character, perched on the brink of a mountain, indicates that his mother is a natural leader. Due to her, numerous problems in the clan are settled. He recalls that initially, he desired to lead an ordinary life with his mother by merely engaging in the process, but now he is encircled by different issues. The individuals who are his companions, subordinates he can rely on, and numerous members of his tribe. These are all individuals he wishes to safeguard in this life. However, it is nearly amusing that he was not even capable of safeguarding himself not long ago. In the current time, however, our lad is resolute to become more powerful so he can safeguard his tribe. From the Lord of the Shadow Unconventional Alliance and the Demon Lord of Immense Skies. Meanwhile, information that the Dang clan has a new ruler arrives at the Lord of the Dark Unconventional Coalition. He obtains a report that Inhumag and Yansang Zhang were vanquished by the Dang clan's youthful lord. Heartfire, Sect Chief Xiaohian Yi, informs that those two were members of the alliance and are recognized throughout the unconventional sects. She proposes they eliminate the Dang clan before they recover authority. Nevertheless, Lord Giljun Yu nods his head. When Xiaohian reminds him that removing their own subordinates is the same as defying his authority, Giljun becomes enraged. He cautions her to stay away from the Dang clan, asserting they can still utilize it. He radiates a powerful presence and consequently, Xiaohian begins to shake as he stares at her, icily declaring that those two idiots assaulted the Dang clan without his instructions and faced a severe consequence. He shortly goes back to normal, declaring it was preferable for them to perish at the hands of the Dang clan's chief than confront his fury. He grins, finding our protagonist intriguing for succeeding in removing those two. Ultimately, he instructs his sentinels to dispatch a note inviting the youthful lord of the Dang clan to the forthcoming feast of Seishin. In Jaihe's chamber, Yongmyong commends his mother for performing an excellent task for the clan. However, she remarks that she isn't certain how effectively she has done, since it's been some time since she managed clan matters. At that instant, he observes his mother is concealing her inner energy again. Jaihe feels astonished that her child has noticed this, but internally our protagonist acknowledges that this time he can hardly perceive it. Still, he ponders if there is any justification to conceal it even after ascending to transcendence. To that, Jaihe asserts she is not merely restraining her power, as she is employing a covert method from their clan called concealed energy presence. She also recommends he utilize the method, but he becomes perplexed since he doesn't perceive any justification to do so at the present time. Then, his mother starts narrating a tale about one of their forebears, the very initial firefighter of the Dang clan. During this occasion, a dreadful epidemic circulated through a single clan settlement in Seishin. Even though nourishment was plentiful, the villagers seemed remarkably frail. With no memorial services being conducted, corpses had to be incinerated to avert the transmission of illness. As a result, the village was almost eradicated by the epidemic, but a 10-year-old lad persisted. The lad was unimpacted by the illness, and the sole justification the villagers could devise was that he was the reason. Soon he was expelled from the village, and during a tempest, he sought refuge in a cave. He endured by consuming remaining food that locals had presented to the deities. 2 days went by like that, and he stayed solitary. On the third day, however, the townsfolk did not go to the shrine. Everyone had perished, and that boy was the sole one remaining. He pondered why he alone was immune to the disease. Shortly after, an enigmatic group emerged before him because he was a child with a connection to venom. The faction was the most infamous killer organization in the annals of combat techniques, the Moonshadow Toxicity Murder Syndicate. This organization had abducted numerous youngsters throughout the continent to educate them as killers, compelling them to consume toxic tablets that necessitated frequent remedies, rendering escape unfeasible. As the lad matured into a killer, he found the corpse of a colleague who neglected to receive the antidote promptly. In that instant, he understood the killer organization was accountable for the epidemic that ruined his residence. Following that, he did all things to grow more powerful, acknowledging and finishing every challenging task. Ultimately, he triumphed in eliminating a supreme master fighter. The guild chief then designated him one of the 5 supreme assassins and proposed to fulfill any desire he wished. However, the lad merely responded he required nothing. Instantly after that, he started eliminating the whole guild, rising to a superior domain in the procedure. Through the knowledge acquired in his confrontations with master fighters and the combat skills he learned at the guild, he developed a supreme technique called the Rain of a Million Flowers. With it, the Moonshadow Poison Assassination Syndicate vanished in merely one night. The offspring of that boy started residing in Seishin. The current Dang clan came into existence. Now that individual is is recalled as the shadowless visitor. When Jae-hee gazes at her child, she discovers him dozing, so she squeezes his cheek to awaken him. Yeon-myung murmurs that he never realized their clan possessed such a fascinating history. Nevertheless, he inquires about the link between their clan's beginnings and the concealed presence technique. His mother clarifies that, comprising the 5 great killers and the guild leader, the assassin guild had numerous transcendents, and inquires if he can speculate how the shadowless visitor dispatched them all single-handedly. Our lad speculates that it must be due to the rain of a million flowers, believing that numerous fighters can't endure a concealed weapons assault that aims at a group simultaneously. Jae-hee notes he is somewhat correct. The method was indeed employed, but she adds that it is an aura method rather than a concealed weapons method. She clarifies that the conflict between masters of transcendence is a struggle of aura, because aura body armor cannot be breached by ordinary concealed weapons. From this, our protagonist understands it doesn't matter how many concealed weapons are employed, as they will merely rebound off the aura body armor. Conversely, a deluge of concealed weapons imbued with aura, the Dang clan's formidable technique, was created specifically for application against masters of transcendence. He additionally observes that neither the untamed twirl of rotating stars nor dispersed metal shards matches in strength, and even sustaining such a method is challenging for a master of transcendence. Suddenly, Jae-hee observes our protagonist pondering how this might be feasible. She claims that the solution is discovered in the concealed energy existence method. To initiate this method, an individual must focus all their internal power coursing through their veins into one of the 12 energy pathways. Then, utilizing core energy, the individual obstructs the flow and closes the energy pathway, which maintains the internal energy. Even experts of transcendence can be deceived by this. While it's accurate that one's immediate internal energy amounts will decrease, those with knowledge and insight can effortlessly replenish their energy. By reiterating the procedure 12 times, closing each internal energy pathway, the central energy that safeguards the internal strength unites to create a new defensive barrier referred to as aura body armor. Jae-hee clarifies that the dragon scale provides superior defense compared to standard aura body armor, and as its title implies, is as robust as dragon scales. Yeon-myung observes that, just like the fire dragon breath poison, everyone likens it to a dragon. His mother then mentions that closing energy pathways not only safeguards the body, moreover, if all 12 pathways are open simultaneously, then for a brief period, one can utilize up to 10 times more than their initial internal energy. When our main character inquires if the downpour of a million blossoms can solely be utilized after all pathways are opened, she informs him it requires more than that. She states there were significant sections transmitted with the concealed energy method, but they were all lost during the conflict against the demons of immense skies. Even the narratives transmitted orally vanished with the passing of 2 elders. Nevertheless, Jae-hee trusts her son will perfect the skill in the future, as he is her joy. Our champion consents, believing there is nothing that the toxic phoenix's offspring cannot accomplish. Soon, Yeon-myung discovers the concealed energy presence method from his mother. Now positioned at his workstation, he believes that consuming poison is the optimal method to swiftly replenish his internal energy after it is confined. Others refer to it as toxin, but to him, it is a potion. He chooses to request Ijung to create some toxin for him, but his musings are disrupted by a sentinel who taps on the door. The sentinel declares that the youthful lord has a visitor who wishes to meet immediately. Unexpectedly, Mirio rushes in, shouting for assistance from our guy. He inquires what's happening, and surprisingly, she yells that her sibling is perishing. Yeon-myung swiftly inquires if Mirio ought to bring her sibling to the Hall of Remedies. However, Mirio weeps as she discloses they have already visited several times, but it appears her sister's situation isn't something medicine can remedy. When our protagonist ponders if it could be an internal wound, Mirio clarifies that it's truly energy obstruction of the 9 yen pathways. In reality, apart from the Blazing Sun Palace, the North Sea Ice Palace also employs energy obstruction in their combat techniques. The members of the Ice Palace trained in ice combat arts, which, being endowed with yen energy, was regarded as both a gift and a distinctive talent for those individuals. As they exit, our lad and Mirio converse about how individuals who don't engage in ice combat arts slowly experience energy obstruction. He then inquires if she and her sibling are heirs of the North Sea Ice, to which she acknowledges, but specifies they aren't direct heirs. A long time ago, the heirs of the Ice Palace established themselves in Sachin and wed into the Dang clan. Individuals claim the energy obstruction can be addressed by mastering ice martial arts. Nevertheless, in the Dang clan, members solely study poison and concealed weapons. As a result, they possess nothing remaining of ice martial arts here, and the methods their forebears introduced have long been forgotten. Now, energy obstruction manifests like a hereditary disease every few decades, and this time its Mirio's sibling who is enduring. When Yunmyong is about to express something, Mirio declares they have reached her residence. Inside, her sibling's state has deteriorated. She is starting to chill, her eyelids shut, and she is incapable of rousing. Our main character observes that the chamber itself is icy from the frigid energy. He faces Mirio, who is crying, and informs her he can't guarantee anything due to her sister's present condition. He clarifies that it appears her sibling has utilized her inherent core vitality to obstruct her energy pathways and combat the chill, but she is at her threshold. As a final option, she has even closed off her awareness to concentrate on obstructing the energy. While weeping, Mirio inquires if there is anything they can accomplish. She hesitates, and then our protagonist discloses that there is a method. They can attempt utilizing external power to eliminate the cold energy, but there's a significant danger. Her sibling might not endure the procedure, and he could be engulfed by the frigid energy himself. Mirio envisions the scenario in her thoughts, paralyzed with concern. Yumyong scowls, hoping the chances were in their advantage, but he realizes he can't make a rash choice since his companion's sibling is at risk. Now all he can do is await Mirio's choice. He instructs her to decide. Should they search for an alternative approach or try his technique? Breathing deeply, she declares that they are present because they have no alternative. With a sorrowful heart, she states she can't abandon her sister without even attempting. She understands she is placing our boy in danger, but she pleads with him to rescue her sister. Then, our main character starts removing Mirio's sister's clothing, causing Mirio to ask if it's truly essential. Ashamed, he clarifies that her attire will merely hinder the removal of the cold energy, and asserts that a touch of humiliation is preferable to death. With that, he begins the removal procedure. In his thoughts, Yumyong examines the 9-yen pathways, observing the center of the forehead isn't a significant issue, so he shifts to the core. He experiences a moment of shame, but then the frigid energy opposes removal, and half of our protagonist's body becomes icy. When Mirio conveys worry, Yunmyong guarantees her he's coping for the time being. He observes he has succeeded in drawing the cold energy from 6 channels, but his body is approaching its limit from taking in the cold. If this persists, he understands he'll succumb to the cold. He mumbles that it would be far simpler if he were handling venom, and unexpectedly, something arises in thought. He remembers Yejong's grandfather clarifying why venom develops within the celestial spheres, stating that medication and toxin have the same origins. When a material surpasses human boundaries, it transforms into poison. Our lad understands that even yang energy, crucial for existence, turns into fire toxin when it surpasses safe thresholds. Consequently, he regards the bone-numbing frigid energy as ice toxin. He instantly engages the blue basin of toxic desire. After a brief instant, it starts to respond. Although the frigid energy might initially oppose extraction, once it is regarded as toxin, it will stop being a danger. Consequently, his icy side starts to melt, and his blue pool entirely extracts the chilly energy. Miso, sensing her physique heat up as the chill departs her, gradually unveils her eyes and abruptly starts to shout. Gazing at Mirio, both siblings begin to cry and hug one another. Mirio clarifies to Miso what just occurred, which makes Miso feel she owes her existence to Yongmyong. Although Mirio is worried about why the young lord is still holding her sister, Miso indicates that he is still concentrating and therefore proposes they delay. Meanwhile, within Miso's body, our lad notices that this energy is akin to a potion. There is more power than his physique can take in, and while the surplus will vanish, he chooses to take in as much chilly energy as feasible to experiment with the concealed energy existence method. He ponders precisely how many energy pathways he is capable of filling up. Following a brief period, as he unveils his eyes, he is astonished to find he can absorb 4. This leaves him with 4 times the quantity of energy he utilized. As he contemplates his present diminished energy levels and how to handle them by consuming poison, his reflections are disrupted by shame as he understands he is still contacting Miso. Anxiously, he withdraws his hand. Miso, however, peacefully states it's alright since she learned the entire tale from Mirio. She expresses her gratitude, and he responds that it was his responsibility as the young lord. Suddenly, Miso's father rushes in and observes his unclothed daughter, which infuriates him. He insists on understanding our protagonist's intention, but his daughters swiftly attempt to soothe him. Subsequently, their father genuinely expresses remorse to Yanmyang, bowing numerous times and seeking pardon. Our protagonist states he fully comprehends, recognizing that it was a readily misinterpreted circumstance. The dad weeps, stating he cannot convey enough appreciation now that his daughter can survive longer. He met his spouse as a traitor and decided to reside with the Dang clan. Unfortunately, she also experienced energy obstruction and died. To rescue rescue his daughters, he expended all his resources seeking a remedy but discovered none. He sobs as he expresses gratitude to our lad for preserving his family, promising that he will do whatever for him. Yanmiang clarifies that he merely did what was necessary. Subsequently, our protagonist remarks that the location is rather tranquil for a trading guild. Miso's father clarifies that following the downfall of the Dang clan and the sinister unconventional alliance, they no longer venture beyond the city boundaries. As a result, the young noble inclines, proposing they talk about this afterward since he has another matter to attend to. Before he can depart, Mirio and Miso show up, stating they haven't adequately expressed gratitude to him yet. Miso, now donning a lovely gown, conveys her profound appreciation for rescuing her life. Our main character flushes and then returns. Miso, however, concerns himself with whether he is genuinely okay, observing he appears a bit bewildered. She inquires Mirio if she believes the young lord injured himself while addressing her energy obstruction, but Mirio mocks her and inquires if she's unhappy to watch him leave. Miso blushes and startles, inquiring if it was that evident. When Mirio gestures, Miso conceals her face with shame. Mirio strokes hair, stating anyone would respond like that, and includes that her sibling is the most beautiful person she's ever encountered. Mirio smiles as she reflects to herself that the expression on Yongmyung's face was alike when he noticed Miso. Due to this, she is convinced he is just as intrigued as her sibling. In the meantime, on his journey, returning, our lad contemplates kin. He envisions beginning a family with Miso, having a son, educating him, and ultimately weeding him and having grandchildren. He flushes, realizing he even envisioned grandchildren. He grins, never anticipating to have such emotions for someone, and speculates this is part of desiring a typical life. He wishes to encounter Miso again shortly. However, he remembers the concern Miso's father mentioned earlier. He begins contemplating Gil Junyu, Lord of the Dark Unconventional Coalition. Although not directly engaged in the collapse of the clan like the Demon Lord of Vast Heavens, there is still a danger, as demonstrated during the heir selection procedure. Our protagonist determines that as long as they distribute Sachin, disputes are destined to occur. At the core Flame faction, in the Shadow Unconventional Alliance's domain in Sachin, Celine obtains a report that the Dang clan is expanding swiftly. She takes a nibble of her apple and doesn't give much focus to the report. She then remembers Giljan's icy caution to keep away from the Dang clan. She also recalls Inya Yab, Chobung's sect chief, advising her to wait until their lord's fury diminishes. In a surge of exasperation, Celine hurls her apple at the journalist, furious that everyone continues advising her to remain inactive even though the Dang clan's new chief and successor have both attained transcendence. She nibbles her nails, exasperated that she can't retaliate against Inhumag and Yansang Zhang yet. Abruptly she halts, remembering her master's instructions to summon the Dang clan's young lord to the forthcoming Sachin feast. She grins, believing the feast will offer a wonderful chance. She acknowledges that waiting is not her character and adds that whenever she shuts her eyes, Inhu shows up in her dreams, prompting her to seek vengeance. Enthusiastically, she chooses to eradicate every final member of the Dang clan for her fury to diminish. She stares at her journalist with a lethal expression, and, disregarding his requests, she scorches him on the spot. With that, Celine chooses to create something memorable for our boy. At a gathering, Jihyok, previous leader of the Poison Lord unit, inquires the second elder about their upcoming intentions. The second elder confesses they have suffered too much since Jihi Dang assumed the clan leadership. Nevertheless, he wonders why Jihyok is even inquiring him, reminding him that it was his and his son's behaviors that resulted in their present situation. Pointing at Munshun, he angrily inquires why he initiated a confrontation with someone significantly more powerful than himself, blaming both Munshun and Jihyok for destroying his life's efforts. Meanwhile, Munshun is becoming enraged at the second elder, harboring resentment. The manner he is addressing in front of the clan chief. He quietly curses our lad Yeonmyung, promising to seek vengeance once his arm is mended. Subsequently, Jihyok reiterates his inquiry, expressing they are battling merely to uphold their personal units. In reply, the second elder tightens his fist and announces they ought to just exit the clan. The following day, our protagonist is directed to the Chamber of Ultimate Poisons, where the 10 poisons and other lethal toxins of the Dang clan are kept. He remembers that the third elder was accountable for overseeing the poison vault before he was terminated, and now both he and the Hall of Dark Poison are managing it. The sentinels at the doorway salute their youthful master with deference. Before entering, a guard gives Yeonmyung a toxin, repelling sphere to shield him from the toxic air within. The concept is that the sphere will sift out the majority of the pollutants if held in his mouth. Unexpectedly, our main character states he doesn't require it, which astonishes the guard. Yeonmyung shakes his head, indicating that that the sphere must have been utilized by numerous individuals, including the third elder. Even though the Sentinel asserts it is sanitized every occasion and that our protagonist should utilize it even if he is invulnerable, the Sentinel gets struck by our lad and tumbles along with the sphere. After that, Yeonmyeong enters the safe. He notices that it's well kept, as this is where the 10 toxins are stored. He ultimately comprehends the guard's worry. If an ordinary fighter entered, they would be slain immediately. Even though his own vitality is hindered due to the concealed energy presence method, the atmosphere here is lethal. However, with his expertise in the azure pool of poison desire, traversing through the vault feels like a stroll in the park. He breathes in the harmful air, relishing it as if he's undergoing toxin treatment, and therefore senses his inner energy increasing, although it's still insufficient to rejuvenate him completely. That is why the optimal method would be to consume a toxin as powerful as the 10 poisons, but he recalls the clan regulation prohibits utilizing them for individual motives. Due to this, he believes he might have requested Ijin for the recipe. Abruptly, he perceives something atypical. The atmosphere seems warped where he is positioned. Upon nearer examination, he understands it's a deceptive barrier. He ponders why there would be such an obstacle in their toxin chamber, particularly one distinct from the Jiggle clan's method. With merely one method to discover, he employs his method to slice through the obstacle and uncovers a concealed corridor. In front of him, paper charms for sealing and protecting line the path. Yeonmyeong instantly identifies they aren't the creation of the Jiggle clan, but instead the methods of mystical practitioners. In his previous existence, his mentor was acquainted with several of them. These persons were fixated on mystical crafts, just as his mentor was fixated on blades. Particularly, mystical practitioners aim to become eternal spirits by mastering incantations. Our protagonist remembers the moment when his mentor cast him into their illusion realms as practice, where he met entities unlike any he'd witnessed before. What's definite is that those professionals only engage in issues that captivate them. Consequently, he cannot grasp why they would place their obstruction within the toxin chamber. In the past, Yeonmyeong's mentor disclosed that mystical practitioners are self-centered, dedicating themselves to fiends and specters in hopes of attaining immortality. He informed our lad that the reason he made friends with them was by thrashing them daily until they were ready to converse. Now, our hero thinks there will never be anyone quite like his mentor, who revealed such distinctive techniques for forming friendships. This merely indicates the Darn clan has something that piqued their interest. As Yeonmyeong examines further, he perceives something so toxic that lethal vapors are escaping, even though hundreds of charms are in position to restrain it. He smiles, considering that while he originally arrived to discover the formula for the 10 toxins, now he's uncovered something much more fascinating. As a result, he enters the hallway to examine. Meanwhile, someone inside perceives an intruder. They notice that it isn't the lightless guest, and while they ponder how much time has passed, they ultimately only concern themselves with being liberated by our boy. Inside, Yeonmyeong discovers the 10th toxin, which he believed was misplaced. The toxin container is adorned with charms. As he extends toward the jar, pondering what type of toxin necessitates such drastic actions, a barrier incantation stops him from advancing. He observes the power of the enchantment, recognizing it will require considerable effort to reverse it. Resolved, he directs his determination to trim the amulets one by one, intending to eliminate those attached directly to the jar as well. Expertly, he cuts off each amulet, wiping his perspiration and observing that the concealed energy presence method has diminished his energy. Typically, this would not have required so much time. As the charms drop away, the toxic air becomes even denser. Positioning his hand on the toxin container, he readies to discover what's within. Meanwhile, inside the jar, a dark spirit perceives the bindings have disappeared. Suddenly, it notices the light. A fierce blast erupts, hurling our hero backward. Before he can respond, a tentacle-similar limb extends towards him. He intuitively attempts to grasp it before it can take hold of him, but it seizes his arm. The dark spirit commends his swift reflexes, but states it will provide him a painless demise for liberating it from the jar. When Yeonmyeong inquires what it is, the essence unveils itself as the azure-horned pale serpent and promptly starts presenting itself as the zenith of poison. Yeonmyeong ultimately understands that the being in front of him is goo poison incarnate. The pale serpent acknowledging that obstructing the energy pathway in his shoulder was remarkable, but then wonders how long he will be capable of enduring it. With delight, the goo poison incarnate asserts that, in a brief period, his arm will dissolve. However, all its assurance diminishes when it observes poison lust consuming all the toxic air. The pale serpent, now frightened, inquires what his connection is with the faceless guest. Clutching the serpent firmly, our champion discloses he is its offspring. Naturally, the serpent anxiously begs our hero to disable his venom venom, or else it will die for good. Nonetheless, Yongmyung stays furious with it and grips even harder, choosing to take in all of its venom. As he starts removing the toxin, the white serpent panics, and at that instant it suggests to present a bargain. Our lad halts for an instant as the serpent begins elucidating. The serpent states its sole desire is to flee from the seal and assures that, if saved, it will become his companion. Yongmyung appears somewhat intrigued, encouraging the snake to state that if he believes in it, he will never lament it. It clarifies that his vitality will increase due to its venom energy. Deep inside, our main character concurs, believing that even the fire carp sphere or the fire dragon's exhalation was not this powerful. The absorbed energy instantly ascends beyond his present internal energy levels. Subsequently, the white serpent declares it can provide him with an infinite supply of toxin energy and naively inquires whether that would be more advantageous for him or if absorbing all the energy at this moment is preferable. However, our champion shakes his head, stating it's not wise to maintain a threat alive and that he can discover poison elsewhere too. The white serpent's eyes brim with tears as it clarifies it has only gazed at the wall, having spent the last few decades within that jar. Creating an adorable and naive expression, the serpent asserts it won't be able to defy him once it transforms into a companion. Following a break, Yanmiang ultimately chooses to rely on it, but he cautions that if he observes anything unusual, he will eliminate it immediately. The serpent promptly recognizes this. Then, our lad inquires how he can make it his companion, confessing he does not know anything about magical arts. The serpent begins releasing energy and forms the strand of a spirit, clarifying that once he grasps it, their spirits will be connected and the serpent will turn into his companion. With that, Yanmiang grasps the strand of a spirit. Meanwhile, outside, the sentinels converse about how long their youthful lord has been indoors. They begin fretting and question if something negative has occurred to him. One proposes going in, but the other cautions them they are prohibited from accessing the vault. Nonetheless, the fit one places the safeguarding sphere inside his mouth and states that they might be penalized, but that shouldn't prevent them from rescuing their future clan chief. Prior to their ability to shift, a radiant beam emerges from within the vault and the earth trembles. The entrance swings open, and one sentinel anxiously inquires if their youthful lord is fine, while the other observes him glowing. Subsequently, Yanmiang notices he can now engage aura body armor, dragon scale. Unlike the standard aura body armor, this one feels as if he is donning real armor. He grins, remembering that he was capable of filling all 12 energy pathways once he made the white serpent his companion. Still, our main character intends to manage his energy levels in public more, as he has already drawn a lot of notice on his way back. In the following instant, the pale serpent emerges, and inquires why Yanmiang must be concerned about what others perceive of him, even though the shadowless guest did not hide his strength. Disregarding all that was mentioned, our champion flicks the serpent away, reminding it to remain concealed. Experiencing discomfort, the white serpent discloses that others can only perceive it if it permits them to. It also mentions that with this type of energy, our lad will repel his foes as well. Still, Yanmiang believes it is excessive, as this time he is attempting to lead a regular life. Listening to him express this occasion, the pale serpent indicates that he is speaking as if he is experiencing his second existence and therefore questions whether he will lead a typical life. When our youthful lord requests to understand what he signifies, the serpent claims there is consistently a motive behind possessing great strength. It mentions that it was identical for its former master, the shadowless guest, because those with authority are constrained by destiny. Yanmiang grins, indicating his forebear also managed it. The white serpent becomes annoyed and advises him not to provoke it. It discloses that the previous owner made it function like a canine and then had a mystical expert enclose it in a container, believing it was perilous. As the serpent seethes just contemplating its history, our main character is immersed in reflection as he ultimately comprehends why mystical practitioners were engaged. The white serpent is indeed a legendary being on a superior level of reality. Now, Yanmiang ponders why the mystical practitioners didn't attempt to claim it for themselves and why they assisted his forebear in confining it instead. He ponders if his forebear was akin to its former owner. More than that, he contemplates whether he was truly born this way for a purpose and perhaps it has something to do with his previous existence. Suddenly, a sentinel rushes in, proclaiming critical information. Our youthful lord swiftly conceals the white serpent and inquires about the updates. The sentinel informs that the route between Sachin and their tribe is packed with fighters from the unconventional faction. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Hyunso is panting heavily as he and his uncle's route has been obstructed. The Fo chief taunts the masters of the Gongdong sect and inquires why they are present, asserting that Sachin pertains to none other than the shadowy unconventional group. Tihyo, severely wounded, instructs Hyunso to flee and abandon him. However, However, Hyunso objects, asserting he cannot confront them all by himself. Internally, Hyunso observes that hundreds of unconventional fighters are present. Under the authority of the chief of Mokyung Palace, Tichin-jang, and with Taehyo's internal wound, he cannot stand a possibility. Tichin observes they must have arrived to request assistance from the Dang clan, but he proudly declares that the Dang clan has already been separated since their new lord assumed control of Sachin. He derisively chuckles, stating his master will undoubtedly compensate him if he presents the two of them to him. Although he has resolved to spare both, it will not be without sacrificing a limb or two. Meanwhile, Hyunmyeong reaches the location as his protector directs him. Our champion inquires who those individuals are, and his sentinels disclose they are from the Gongdong sect. He then determines that those on the contrary side are from the unconventional factions. Following that, he commands his sentinels to aid the two from the Gongdong sect. Hyunso watches from afar and understands the Dang clan is present to assist, but he is not pleased with their limited size since they confront hundreds. Our main character steps ahead, and when he notices Taehyo in bad shape, he commands his guard to help him. A sentinel emerges immediately, aiding Taehyo, while Hyunso is astonished to witness this assistance from someone other than their own master. The sentinels present a gentle grin as Hyunso, still anxious, discloses they have been pursued by at least 200 individuals. Guard comforts him, proposing that if he is uncertain, he should merely wait and observe. Then, Taehyun ponders who our lad is, and one of his associates clarifies that he is the one who endured the Dang clan's aerial selection procedure and turned into the youthful lord. Taehyun begins ridiculing our hero, referring to him as a handsome lad and reminding him to be thankful for the compassion their master displayed towards the clan. Now that they have overstepped the boundary, Taehyun declares he will instruct them on a lesson. But prior to him being able to complete his address, Taehyun tumbles from his steed, leaving his troops bewildered. On the contrary, Hyunmyeong, as composed as always, rubs his ear, feeling irritated after hearing Taehyun's tirade. Taehyun's men remain there in bewilderment, as does Hyunso. Ultimately, our protagonist boldly informs the foe to proceed and attempt to instruct them a lesson, but emphasizes that he will be the one to eradicate them instead. The unconventional sex warriors gaze at their leader, wondering among themselves if he is genuinely deceased. One of them observes a toxic needle lodged in their leader's head, pondering aloud when Hyunmyeong might have tossed it. Another notes that he didn't even observe our protagonist shift his arm. Immediately, our protagonist extracts a fistful of pins and unleashes them at the foe side. Prior to the troops can respond, they are hit by the needles one after another as our lad utilizes his method, tumble. In the meantime, our youthful lord observes that he didn't even cover the needles with venom, yet the foes exhibit the same signs nonetheless. At that instant, the white serpent clarifies that it is because of its venom energy, which has permeated the needles, and most humans cannot endure a toxin of this magnitude. Hyunmyeong grins, confessing that the white serpent has demonstrated itself somewhat beneficial, which predictably irritates the serpent a bit. On the opposite side, Hyunso clenches his jaw, never having anticipated to observe such a deadly concealed weapon method. He therefore contemplates if Hyunmyeong is the individual who dismantled the whole Taeyul Black Sword sect. Meanwhile, the leftover unconventional soldiers comprehend that our main character has eliminated hundreds of them with a solitary action. They strive to understand it, as they had heard the cursed clan was on the brink of downfall, and yet now they confront a perilous beast. One warrior, clutching his hatchet firmly, thinks our hero cannot possess much stamina remaining to employ such a method again, unless he is an expert of transcendence. Because of this, he rushes ahead, resolute to bring Hyunmyeong down, yelling for him to perish as he swings his weapon down. However, our youthful lord breaks the axe with his bare hand, adeptly utilizing his dragon scale method. The foe soldier stands astonished, unable to grasp his axe shattering so effortlessly. Without hesitation, our hero promptly triggers the shower of the blossoms, leaving the foes even more bewildered. At the same moment, Hyunso can distinctly observe that the Dang clan has not forfeited their covert method as earlier speculated. He acknowledges internally that the Dang clan is just as strong as it ever was, and observes that they are genuinely able to confront the unconventional sex. His musings are disrupted when Hyunmyeong observes his presence. Anxiously, Hyunso stammers that he just cannot divert his gaze from these methods. In reply, Hyunmyeong proposes they go back to the Dang clan's main office to talk about what just occurred. Hyunso recognizes this and absorbs the frightening view of the unconventional sex fallen soldiers, ultimately concluding it is best to uphold a positive relationship with the Dang clan. Reflecting on a few days prior, beyond the barriers of Seishin, Hyunso had informed his sect uncle that he was thankful for arriving here without difficulty. Despite gossip that the Dang clan had collapsed, matters appeared tranquil. However, his uncle was anxious for reasons he did not disclose. Unexpectedly, a man in a cap emerged, inquiring inquiring about the dish they had just completed. Hyunso hadn't detected his presence, quickly deducing the stranger could not be a typical master. His eyes expanded when his uncle disclosed that the man was Gil-junyu. Gil-jun took off his hat, wishing he had not disturbed their meal, and then inquired what led them to his station. Hyunso started to perspire, never anticipating to meet the ruler of the unconventional alliance. Gil-jun faced Taihyo, inquiring what matter they had with his alliance, noting that an individual of his status could not be dispatched on a mere task. On the opposite hand, Taihyo responded icily that they had no dealings with the dark unconventional coalition and inquired why Gil-jun was present alone. Gil-jun then pondered if they believed they could conquer him if he was alone. Taihyo felt somewhat anxious, stating that he was more than twice Gil-jun's age, but Gil-jun merely inquired if Taihyo planned to demonstrate him some regard. He excluded aura. Taihyo mentioned that the quantity of internal energy is vital in a battle between masters. He then inquired if Gil-jun thought he could withstand the Gangdong sex techniques. Meanwhile, Hyunso was astonished to see his uncle incited, pondering if a confrontation was about to erupt. At that instant, Gil-jun labeled Taihyo conceited. He reminded them that the opposite gender had all been annihilated by him 10 years prior, stating that the sole reason the Gangdong gender still persisted was its remoteness from Seishin. Gil-jun then departed, stating that if Taihyo still declined to acknowledge reality, he could come to see him for a brief conversation. Hyunso promptly attempted to soothe Taihyo, but his uncle maintained he could not turn away. As a result, he rose, resolute to confront Gil-jun and demonstrate the power of his martial arts. Now in the current, Hyunso clarifies that this is how his sect uncle concluded up dueling with the lord of the unorthodox coalition. However, to Yeonmyeong, this does not appear to be a straightforward duel. Hyunso then mentions that they were pursued afterward, noting that Gil-jun was genuinely frightening. The contest had persisted with both trading blows at such velocity that even Hyunso could not maintain pace. Taihyo then executed a strong strike, but Gil-jun remarked that this could not be his finest. Listening to this, Taihyo clenched his jaw and started engaging the genuine strength of the demon subduing blade method. Hyunso, observing from the earth, believed his uncle had the advantage, but then he noticed Gil-jun grinning and intercepting the strike at the final moment. Resolved, Taihyo chose to utilize his supreme illumination. On the contrary, Gil-jun grinned, ultimately capable of observing the method at maximum strength. Subsequent to a massive detonation, Hyunso was astonished to witness his uncle employ the final maneuver. As the haze dissipated, Taihyo declared he had conquered Gil-jun, but prior to anyone being able to rejoice, Gil-jun appeared from the haze unscathed. Both Taihyo and Hyunso halted upon observing him unharmed. Gil-jun stated he should anticipate nothing less from one of the 9 great factions, acknowledging it was a combat skill that genuinely handled aura. Hyunso found it astonishing to witness Gil-jun endure the technique. Consequently, Taihyo promptly pushed Hyunso aside, as Gil-jun released his own method, calling it the virtuous restraining celestial method. Yeonmyeong wishes to verify if Gil-jun truly employed the Gangdong sex combat techniques, and in reply, Hyunso characterizes it as an altered version of their method. Although the energy was of a distinct type, it employed the same approach as the demon-suppressing sword technique's ultimate realization, yet its strength had even exceeded the original. If Taihyo hadn't obstructed the strike at that instant with his leftover internal energy, Hyunso wouldn't have endured. Following that, our protagonist drifts into profound contemplation, remembering that Taihyo was a virtuoso of transcendence. Nevertheless, what's even more astonishing is that Gil-jun grasped and altered the technique simply by observing it once, indicating he succeeded in comprehending the combat skills of a skilled master in just one encounter. Subsequently, Hyunso clasps his hands and informs our boy that he and his sect uncle have arrived here for a purpose. He humbly asks for the assistance of the Dang clan for their sect in the forthcoming conflict of sects. He then discusses the Sinister Sect, a sect and military group located in Shingang. In the past, the malevolent cult was strong enough to confront all 9 great sects and every faction in the martial realm simultaneously. Even though numerous things have altered, the reason the virtuous factions have never been able to restrain them is that the whole cult adheres solely to one individual's commands, the malevolent cult's chief. As time went by, the circumstance transformed when the cult leader's offspring Jung-Heek-Yun appeared. He drew numerous individual adherents because of his divine martial physique, and therefore, Jung-Heek departed the cult with his adherents to establish a new organization, the Demons of Vast Heavens, so the former cult wouldn't split into factions. Hyunso clarifies that now is the optimal opportunity to attack the sinister cult as numerous talented fighters have departed with Jung-Heek. However, their primary hurdle is the dark unconventional coalition. If the coalition assaults the Gangdong sect while their fighters are absent, it will be an issue. He states that after witnessing our young lord's strength strength. He relies on him to keep the coalition distant from their faction. Therefore, Hyunso politely asks for our protagonist's assistance. Unexpectedly, our hero refuses immediately, and therefore Hyunso becomes perplexed. Once more, our lad reiterates that he is not keen. Later, Taehyo learns that our young lord has refused, and then Hyunso includes that Hyunmyeong has chosen to confer with their clan leader prior to reaching a final conclusion. Hyunso inquires of his sect uncle what might occur if Hyunmyeong doesn't consent, and his uncle proposes they delay. After that, Hyunso indicates that the Dang clan appears to be rather distinct from what they have heard. He clarifies he has witnessed the Dang clan up close, and assessing by their structures, the strength of the fighters, and the general ambience, it is nothing similar to the gossip regarding their downfall. Taehyo thinks the Dang family must have recuperated after the collapse, but their conversation is halted when Jihyun comes to inform that Hyunmyeong is expecting them. Later, Hyunso and Taehyo are astonished to view Ji-hee as the present chief of the Dang clan. She greets them and states she has listened to all from our young lord. After observing her, Taehyo can distinctly perceive she is an expert of transcendence. He thinks she must be the cause behind the Dang clan's rejuvenated spirit, and determines that the Dang clan has ultimately reclaimed the authority it previously possessed. After taking a seat, Hyunso clarifies that the Gongdong faction is in need of support, and as a member of the Righteous Legion, they seek aid from the Dang clan in the battle against the coalition and malevolent forces. Following a short break, Ji-hee inquires of her son if his choice still hasn't altered. When our protagonist discloses his opinions remain unchanged, Hyunso requests an explanation, emphasizing that if they don't take action now, the sinister cult will unleash turmoil upon the world. Our lad clarifies that while they concur regarding the sinister sect, the coalition is a different issue. He declares he has never witnessed the coalition injuring the inhabitants of Sachin. Although they gather charges for providing security, they have utilized that funds for appropriate reasons, just like the righteous factions. To state it plainly, there is no justification to assault the coalition. Our champion becomes solemn as he discusses being a member of the Righteous Legion. He clarifies that when the dark unorthodox coalition vanquished the other righteous factions, and when the fiends of immense skies assaulted their clan, no one from the righteous factions intervened to assist. He comprehends that everyone values their family and group above all else, but to utilize the malevolent sect as a justification, as if it's the Dang clan's obligation to battle, is incorrect. He inquires if they think the Dang clan doesn't comprehend they are merely attempting to combat the demonic cult because their own faction is next. Hyunso grips his hand, acknowledging internally that Yeongmyeong is correct. He believes that they discuss the larger benefit, but ultimately, they respond only when the danger affects their own group. Surprisingly, Taeho expresses regret for not being thoughtful. He acknowledges they were mistaken to request the Dang clan to make sacrifices after all they have endured. Nevertheless, Taeho still maintains the need for reevaluation and adds that they will also offer something in exchange. Our youthful lord eases a little, choosing not to disregard their request any further. Hyunso places on a gentle grin, implying they converse about the quantity of fighters to dispatch. But our main character interrupts him, stating he is more concerned with how much they are prepared to offer. Subsequently, Hyunso is entirely bewildered, unable to accept they have just proposed their sect's upkeep charges for numerous years. Taeho calmly states it's more than valuable if that's what it requires to preserve the sect. Additionally, Yeongmyeong wouldn't have requested such a substantial cost if he weren't assured. Hyunso acknowledges our young lord's power is remarkable, but Taeho interjects, cautioning not to be overly confident, since our main character may even exceed the Dang clan's chief. But Hyunso highlights it's unfeasible for Taeho to be deceived regarding energy presence. Taeho replies that it's achievable if someone conceals their degree of achievement, even from a master of transcendence. Above, our protagonist hears their conversation as they depart. This leads him to believe that it's improbable Taeho would be aware if he was employing the concealed energy presence method. He acknowledges internally that Taeho's instinct is keener than he anticipated. Right then, his mother insists to know why he altered his decision, knowing he didn't consent for the cash alone. Our main character clarifies that it wasn't an abrupt shift of sentiment. Although he has praised the unconventional alliance, he doesn't entirely rely on them. His mother indicates it is accurate that Sacheon was ruined despite the collapse of the primary sects, and Yeongmyeong agrees, but asserts that was solely due to Giljunyu. He indicates that these groups are not deemed unconventional just because they didn't align with the virtuous faction. Instead, it's that they emphasize self-interest over integrity and fairness. As a result, they are no distinct from thieves. Although Giljun presently possesses the unconventional sex back, it's in their character to annihilate their adversaries. If Giljun vanishes, the unconventional intimacy will ruin Sacheon entirely. Jae-hee recognizes this, then inquires Yongmyong about his strategy. Our champion smiles, stating he intends to keep the alliance too occupied to consider heading north. However, his mother inquires whether it isn't too excessive for their tribe to keep them engaged. Right then, our main character discloses he is intending to rattle them from within. Jae-hee is astonished as she comprehends he aims to go directly into their headquarters, but she acknowledges it makes sense. Our lad calmly reassures her and discloses he will utilize their invitation to participate in the Feast of Sacheon. Unlike before, the feast has now transformed into a contest for the younger generation. Consequently, our young lord has chosen to attend merely to witness their genuine character. If he considers them harsh and malevolent, he will remove them all. Meanwhile, in a vehicle outside the Dong clan, Chongshin cautions a girl named Yongmyong not to act impulsively. He reminds her that the destiny of their tribe relies on her deeds. Yongmyong laughs, comforting her uncle that she will strive to make Yongmyong hers, regardless of the circumstances. Aijuan salutes Taihyo, presenting vibrant remedies intended to assist his healing. Taihyo reclines in bed as Aijuan questions about his internal wound. In reply, Taihyo joyfully discloses he is feeling significantly improved and mentions that his grandfather's remedy is truly fantastic. He acknowledges that when he initially heard the remedy merge toxin and therapeutic plants, he was reluctant. However, it functioned like a charm on his internal injury. Noticing how swiftly Taihyo is recuperating, Aijuan thinks he will come back to his sect shortly. Aijuan grins gently, satisfied with the advancement. In the meantime, Hyunso perceives commotion outside and inquisitively inquires Aijuan about it. Aijuan clarifies it is because of the arrival of the Jaegal clan, who possess a lengthy history of camaraderie with the Dang clan. He remarks that is the reason they even offered to assist with the clan's air selection procedure. Now they are keen on setting up a protection illusion barrier outside the clan's walls. Hyunso is bewildered, realizing how near the two clans are, but he ponders if the Jaegal clan can truly bear such a cost, since setting up an illusion barrier requires a significant amount. Taihyo inquires if the Dang clan is bearing all the expenses, but Aijuan laughs, disclosing that the Jaegal clan will manage everything. He mentions that the Jaegal clan has been very helpful regarding the entire project, leaving both Hyunso and Taihyo astonished, pondering what the Dang clan could possibly have on them. Meanwhile, Yongyang's uncle, traveling in the carriage, still can't overcome our hero's frighteningly icy demeanor. Soon, Yongyang and her uncle are about to welcome Yongyang. The uncle inquires if he can truly rely on her, but Yongyang assures him, assuredly asserting she is fully conscious of her own allure as she brags about her attractiveness. Her uncle recalls how her mother, his own sibling, was once referred to as the most stunning woman in all Hobok. Therefore, he deduces it won't be challenging for Yongyang to charm our young lord. He remembers internally that over 10 years ago, the fiends of immense skies attacked the Jaegal clan due to his sister. She rescued the clan by giving up herself, but incapable of bearing the humiliation of being regarded as a one-night toy, she ended her own life. Now, he vows to himself not to allow his clan encounter the same misfortune again. He thinks that if Yongyang and our protagonist cultivate a connection, the Jaegal tribe will endure thanks to the Dang tribe's assistance. Deep inside, he hopes for Yongyang, understanding the destiny of the clan depends on her. The entrance in front of them swings open, and Jiha salutes them, stating she has heard that the Jaegal clan's deception zone played a significant part during their selection procedure. Both Yongyang and her relative are astonished to see Jiha for the initial time. Jiha smiles, joyfully talking about their enthusiasm for setting up a protection illusion barrier. Chongshin is in shock, questioning if she genuinely is the parent of our young lord. He subtly suggests that our boy must have inherited traits from her. He promptly welcomes Jiha and expresses regret for not being aware that the Dang clan has designated a new leader. However, Jiha calmly dismisses it, clarifying the Jaegal clan was not there when she was designated. She then recommends they relax after their lengthy trip, to which Chongshin genuinely expresses gratitude to her. Jiha then inquires who the girl with Chongshin is, and he discloses she is his niece, here in hopes of forming stronger connections with the Dang clan. He requests his niece to welcome Jiha, but Yongyang is flushing intensely, her heart racing after spotting our protagonist. She contemplates how someone can appear so attractive and swiftly determines he will be an ideal spouse. Chongshin anxiously murmurs her name, jolting Yongyang back to reality. She inclines, presents herself, and commends Jiha on becoming clan chief. Jiha appreciates her genuinely, considers her courteous, and mentions that she will be pursued by boys in a couple of years. Serenely, Jiha discloses she was also well-liked in the past, noting that Yongyang brings to mind her younger self. Yongyang asserts she still appears lovely, confessing she believed Jiha was our young lord's elder sister. Internally, Yongyang intends to create a favorable favorable impression with both the young lord and his mother, as she will be her future mother-in-law. With that, Jiha wishes she and her son get along nicely, since they are the same age. Yongyang intentionally fills her eyes with tears, stating her half-brother at home was never affectionate towards her. As she unveils her watery eyes, wishing to stir our protagonist, she discovers him yawning. Both she and her uncle are astonished to see him yawning while she describes her difficulties. Yongyang strives to comprehend this, since in her tribe, boys have never abandoned her. Now she feels uncertain about her appearance. On the contrary, our youthful lord is solely contemplating me thus. Yongyang tightens her hands, feeling embarrassed that our hero didn't even glance at her. Meanwhile, Jiha reprimands our protagonist for his poor etiquette. Now, Yongyang promises to make our boy fall for her regardless of the circumstances. In the interim, in Inner Sachin City, the domain of the Dark Unorthodox Coalition, individuals chatter about our hero participating in the Feast of Sachin. They question whether the opposite gender will remain silent after what he has accomplished. The Heartfire faction turns out to be the preparation chamber for the feast. In a gathering, Seolian clarifies that the cover page of the document is the necessary budget for the feast, and behind it are the lists of participating genders and clans for the combat competition. Mayeonjel Sang, one of the 6 prominent unorthodox leaders, states that initially the Cheongan faction was responsible for this year's feast, but now the Heartfire faction will manage it. Seolian responds that she is merely obeying their lord's commands. Another chief chuckles, noting that their master just rushed out without even glancing at Seolian's report. Someone else quips that their master is a free soul and ponders when he will eventually mature. Suddenly, a youngster bursts into the meeting room, calling everyone her uncles. The small girl declares she also wishes to join the banquet. She embraces Mayeonjel, who inquires why she is curious since she remained home last year. The young girl chuckles and states she has heard the leader of the Dang clan will be present, and that he is so attractive the women who observe him instantly fall for him. Mayeonjel highlights these tales are outrageous, but the small girl doesn't mind about that. She determines that if the gossip is accurate, she will wed him. She naively inquires if she can visit him, and Mayeonjel consents, aware she won't heed anyone since she has already resolved her decision. Meanwhile, Seolhyun smirks mischievously at the little girl as something occurs to her. Mayeonjel determines that no one has the courage to refute the offspring of the ruler of the shadowy unconventional alliance. Mirio is brushing Miso's hair and remarks that it is very smooth, even though she has been confined to bed all this time. As they converse, she notes that the other day she was likened to Miso in front of Yongmyong. She's on the verge of posing a follow-up, but then alters the topic as she playfully inquires her sister what she genuinely believes about our young lord. Miso begins to fret as her cheeks flush, and therefore, she inquires why Mirio is asking something like that. Mirio smiles, noticing that she saw Miso's respiration becoming more labored at the mention of his name. Irritated, Miso inquires if this is the reason why Mirio is studying martial arts, merely to examine how individuals breathe. Then, Mirio cautions her to be careful, disclosing that Yongmyong is intending to join the Feast of Sachin, indicating they won't be able to encounter him for some time. Miso frets, declaring that the Feast of Sachin is a congregation of the unconventional factions, which is exceedingly perilous. However, Mirio highlights an alternative issue. What if he interacts well with other girls at the banquet? She inquires if Miso will permit that, at which Miso creates a sorrowful expression, believing it would be awful. Consequently, Mirio proposes they attend the feast themselves. She seizes Miso's hand, disregarding her objection, and declares everything will be okay because she has a strategy. Subsequently, Yongmyong asks that our protagonist permit her to be his aide at the feast. She states she has heard there will be a contest for dominance over Sachin's future. Therefore, she is eager to see precisely how it will be conducted. Hesitantly, our lad states he has been informed he can bring a companion and a security guard with him, but he emphasizes that they are not going on holiday. Internally, Yongmyong is all enthusiastic to join our hero and gain his fondness. Unexpectedly, Mirio opens the door and speaks to our boy. He gazes at her, observing he already felt someone approaching. Mirio enters grasping her sister's arm, declaring she has something to suggest. However, Mirio halts upon noticing Yongmyong seated there. Both of them immediately sense antagonistic feelings towards one another, insisting to learn who the other is. Meanwhile, our youthful lord is eager to understand why Mirio has brought Miso with her. In reply, Mirio assuredly states that she and Miso desire to attend the banquet with him. Yongmyong feels a little perplexed, so he inquires if she desires him to take her as his bodyguard and Miso as his aide. While stroking Miso's shoulder, Mirio nods, clarifying he must require a few attendants, and for that, she and Miso are ideal. Meanwhile, Yongmyong is perplexed, pondering what Mirio is scheming, but she also observes that Mirio is behaving as if she is acquainted with the young lord personally. Then she gazes at Miso and determines she is as beautiful as the clan leader. Internally, she gnaws her nails and fears, believing her schemes will be destroyed if our hero brings that girl along. Unexpectedly, our lad claims he can choose Mirio as his bodyguard, but he cannot select Miso because he has already pledged the role of attendant to another person. Mirio seethes, declaring she will not arrive if he doesn't bring Miso too, while Yongmyong begins flushing, pondering if he is referring to her. Our champion calmly informs Mirio that if she is not inclined to accompany, then he will seek another bodyguard. Miso's gaze fills with tears. Initially, she claims it is fine, but as her sobs increase, she confesses she isn't well at all, yet still maintains it is alright. Since our young lord has stated he doesn't require her, she thinks they shouldn't become angry. Right then, Mirio stares at Yongmyong icily and insists that he meet her outside. Outside, Mirio acknowledges our protagonist is remarkable. He possesses abilities, discernment, and determination, but she merely cannot comprehend why he is so thick when it pertains to women. She clenches her jaw, thinking he is not appreciative of the assistance she is providing him. She inquires why he cannot receive Miso, recalling her she has provided him a flawless opportunity to establish a connection. Yet he is discarding it. But to her astonishment, our main character clarifies it is too perilous at the feast, as they cannot foresee what will occur when the younger cohorts of the unconventional gender clash. He concerns himself with what could transpire with Miso, while he and Mirio are distracted, inquiring who will assume accountability if she is injured. He reminds Mirio that the feast is in the domain of the shadowy unconventional alliance, and indicates that Miso is still healing, thus it would be too much for her to manage. Ultimately, Mirio unwillingly consents, declaring she will accompany him. Yeonmyung becomes perplexed because she earlier resolved not to go without Miso, but then Mirio shouts at him, disclosing she just cannot abandon him alone with that alluring female. Subsequently, in the night, Changshin is nodding off while grasping a document. Our champion emerges from nowhere, discovering him dozing on the task. Changshin panics, clarifying he has completed creating the illusion barrier and was just making final modifications. He states it will be finished by tomorrow night. Right then, our protagonist starts examining the obstacles using his sight method. Now he can observe a strong safeguarding illusion barrier right above their clan structures. Changshin clarifies that from the Hall of Dark Toxin to the Executive Committee, the obstacles have been set up around the most significant structures. Remembering how Yeonmyung instructed him to complete it within a week, Changshin anxiously states he has reached the deadline and wishes it is to his contentment. Our lad taps his shoulder, declaring he relies on him to complete the remainder as intended. Changshin makes a sorrowful expression as he was anticipating a thank you. Still, he nods in recognition. Subsequently, our youthful lord grins kindly, believing that now he can attend the feast without concern as the clan will be safeguarded. Now he observes he must attend to one additional object. Consequently, he calls the fourth elder, Jiryong Dang, who stands directly in front of him. He confesses he was astonished to be called for a personal discussion. Then, our protagonist notes that Jiryong was appointed an elder because of his outstanding swordplay, and since our young man has chosen to perfect the sword, he wishes to have a conversation. Recalling the atmosphere selection procedure, the fourth elder discloses he has never attained the flow of the sword Yeonmyung utilized that day, admitting he is still in wonder of the disparity in their skills. Then, our boy straightforwardly indicates that at Jiryong's present level, he wouldn't endure a single move. This is the cause why he has called him to provide him advice. However, he will instruct him in return for something. Our lad insists that Jiryong yield to him in the future. He assures the fourth elder will never receive a chance like this again. Now, he desires to understand, will Jiryong change his allegiance? Yeonso appreciates the Dang clan for their generosity as he and Taeho get ready to depart. On behalf of the Gongdong faction, Yeonso genuinely appreciates them for participating in their mission. Subsequent to this, Taeho expresses gratitude to the clan for assisting in mending his internal wounds and mentions that he will be accessible whenever the Dang clan requires him. Jihai warmly receives their appreciation and provides some of her warriors and leaders to aid with the eradication of the infernal sect. Taeho declares they will never overlook this kindness and then shakes hands with Jihai, declaring they will dispatch the payment the instant they arrive home. After that, Taeho contacts Yang to express his gratitude for rescuing them before they could become as proficient as Carrion. As they clasp hands, Taeho comments that it won't be long before our young lord exceeds him. Suddenly, he perceives a tremendous quantity of internal power radiating from our boy, which causes him to wince. Hyunso panics, noticing that his sect uncle appears unwell, but Taeho dismisses it and fabricates, asserting he is merely experiencing experiencing sorrow about their exit. Nevertheless, as they return, Taeho observes internally that it was not merely his fantasy. He ponders how the lad's strength could be so remarkable. As a result, he understands that Jaihai is not the only cause behind the Dang clan's revival. It is all because of our young lord. Meanwhile, Jaihai directs her troops to return a kindness twofold but pursue retribution tenfold. She proclaims that in accordance with Dang clan regulations, they value loyalty greatly. Now that they have united with the Gongdong sect, their fates have merged into one. All the troops, comprising numerous seniors, recognize her commands in harmony. With that, Jaihai hopes them fortune. Later, Ijuan provides the toxin that scorches intestines to our protagonist, who acknowledges he is always thankful for his assistance. However, Ijuan is inquisitive as to why he consistently asks for the same toxin when they have numerous options to select from. Young grins, stating he has merely become entirely acquainted with this one and discovers nothing else quite similar. He then gestures to Ijuan as he gets ready to depart, while Ijuan beams kindly and reminds him to return safely. Our champion leaves. The pale serpent appears and poses a peculiar inquiry if he is certain he is not of age. Young inquires why it is requesting such a thing, to which the white snake responds that it doesn't comprehend how he is capable of utilizing such sophisticated martial arts at his age. It claims it would only trust him if he were an ancient expert who had devoted years honing his abilities. Nevertheless, it thinks he is not yet close to the standard of the shadowless guest, even though it indicates that the sword technique our hero employed to conquer the fourth elder was several tiers superior to the swordsman its previous master battled. Our lad gets a tad irritated, highlighting that the lord of the coalition is an expert who can acquire a technique merely by observing it, and thus he himself cannot afford to be anything less than a genius. He thinks the serpent's inquiries are pointless. However, the serpent still senses something is odd. After a while, our protagonist reaches the doorway where the others are anticipating. Mirio gestures at him, inquiring why he is so delayed. So, young Myung clarifies he was collecting toxin from Ijin. He then inquires about the individual standing in the center who bows and salutes our young lord. He presents himself as Giljong, their guide to the city center. Before our youthful lord can express gratitude to him, He shows up and inquires if he is about to depart. Everyone salutes the clan chief promptly, but he instructs them to forego the formalities. He recognizes that something significant is occurring but asserts she will back her son regardless of what direction he selects, wishing he doesn't overexert himself. Young Myung politely comforts her, stating he is influenced by his mother. He laughs, playfully stating he is the proud offspring of the toxic phoenix after all. Then, she assigns the protection of her son to his friends and cordially bids them goodbye. Ultimately, the team reaches Sacheon Hyun-young. Mirio remarks that everything seems very vibrant, observing it wasn't like this the previous time she came. Young Myung inquires if she has been here earlier, and she proudly discloses she visited several times when her father was the leader of the Merchant Association. She states his association was once one of the largest in Sacheon, but it has since diminished due to the unconventional sex. Our protagonist mentions he recalls her father telling him this. Internally, our lad believes that if their tribe continues to expand, they must create a trading guild of their own, as they cannot depend on misappropriated funds or the remedy hall's earnings indefinitely. Consequently, he directs Mirio to meet him with her father once this is finished, as he intends to assist him in becoming the leader of a trading guild once more. Mirio can't fathom it and shouts at him, cautioning him not to retract it later. In the meantime, a trader remains despondently close by because no clients have come. He hopes for someone to drop in who has a strong passion for swords. Our hero's crew reaches his store. Yun Myong inquires if the establishment is open, mentioning he desires to examine the blades. The trader observes their unusual garments and kindly greets them indoors, nonchalantly asserting his blades are among the best in the city. Mirio inquisitively inquires why our lad requires a sword, to which he discloses he merely believed possessing a weapon would be advantageous. While examining a sword closely, our protagonist can discern the shopkeeper wasn't deceiving, as the blade holds excellent quality and a keen aura. He informs the vendor the blades are outstanding, and when the shopkeeper asks if he is knowledgeable about arms, our champion asserts he is, though a tad only. He then comments that while the blade may appear simple, the essence is keen, evidence of how meticulously it was crafted. The trader is astonished that he can discern so much from a solitary look. As a result, our protagonist chooses to purchase the sword, but the vendor abruptly flees, asking that he hold on for a moment. After a moment, the shopkeeper comes back with a storage container, disclosing he was reserving a particular object for someone with a keen eye for metal. As the container unfolds, the trader uncovers the supreme sword ever crafted, the Fiend Harvest. Both Mirio and Yong can sense how incredible the sword is. Even Yong Yong, who doesn't know a thing about blades, can tell its caliber is remarkable. Then, the trader discloses that his employer died while crafting this sword. Consequently, he assumed control and finished it himself. He is eager to discover what Yong believes, as he is confident that this is a blade for the centuries. Internally, our lad concurs with the trader, trusting this blade is similar to the one he wielded in his previous existence. He can sense the true nature of keenness ingrained within it. Unexpectedly, he informs the shopkeeper that he doesn't require this sword, even though he can perceive the artistry is exceptional. The vendor anxiously inquires if it fell short of his anticipations. However, our champion states it is rather the contrary. He informs the shopkeeper to take pride in what he has created, but clarifies that is exactly why he cannot accept it. Although deep inside he observes that strolling around with such a weapon would attract too much notice, he merely asserts he is content with a standard sword. He informs the shopkeeper he will examine the blade he chose previously, and although the shopkeeper exhales, he opts to fulfill the request. Unexpectedly, a crowd appears at the store, prompting the shopkeeper to fret as he understands it is young Lord Yen. Yen, in a fury, reminds the vendor that he requested the best sword obtainable. It appears he is the successor of the Hainyang Gate, Saching Yun, who presumes the shopkeeper has audaciously concealed that weapon from him. He never imagined a simple blacksmith would handle him that way, so the blacksmith desperately attempts to clarify he has it all mistaken. In the meantime, our youthful lord perceives a overseas power from Yun's sentinels and senses something is off. Right then, the pale serpent appears, indicating that it is a malevolent presence. It asserts it arrived to acknowledge this energy when it battled the shadowless guest. Internally, our main character confesses he has heard of it previously, but he questions what zealots are doing here in Saching. The pale serpent murmurs that it doesn't understand either, but observes they can discover if they bring a few of them in for questioning. Yen stands directly in front of Yen Mayong, instructing him to move aside as he plans to remove the blacksmith or anyone else in his route. Surprisingly, our lad calls him and taps his forehead forcefully. The sentinels' eyes expand as they shout for their youthful lord. Then, our main character observes that Yen can never handle a sword, even the best weapon on earth, thus implying he practiced for a few more decades before returning. One of Yan's sentinels lifts his sword, insisting to understand how he had the audacity to tap the brow of Jin Sun Nam's descendant. He proclaims that demise is the sole appropriate penalty. However, disregarding the sentinel, our protagonist directly inquires what their connection is with the infernal sect. At this, everyone on Yan's side halts. Unexpectedly, a man appears from the crowd, departing youthful youth to ponder anxiously where he originated. In the meantime, Yen and his protectors glance back to observe a masked individual positioned there who merely inquires how they have the audacity to offend his group with that title. All of Yan's sentinels shift to shield their youthful lord, but with just one action, the masked individual removes several of them. He chooses to bring Yen along with them and instructs his men to eliminate the others. The concealed individual confesses to our protagonist that he is astonished he perceived their shadow veil, merely inquiring how he realized they were present. Meanwhile, the blacksmith and the two girls shiver in dread at the glimpse of cultists in the center of Sachion. Surprisingly, our young lord states it is unfeasible not to observe them when demonic cultists smell quite foul. He ridicules the masked man, implying he should conceal his unattractive face if he desires to obscure his identity. Muriel finally shouts at our boy, questioning if he is truly attempting to provoke such a perilous man. The masked individual then inquires if the butchery of the guards wasn't sufficient to scare him, but our champion grins, stating the cultists ought to be the ones who are fearful. He then takes a sword from the blacksmith, labeling the cultist faction as equally unattractive as the sentinels they just eliminated. The veiled cultist chief sees and instructs his troops to remove Yeon while he confronts Yeon Mayong. When one of the guys seizes him, Yeon shouts in terror as he still doesn't understand who they truly are. Meanwhile, our main character observes that Yeon indeed did not perceive their presence, yet he concedes the boy isn't completely innocent. Abruptly, the masked chief initiates his assault, insisting that our protagonist focus. Nevertheless, with merely one blow, our champion shatters his adversary's blade as a detonation occurs. The sect leader reclines on the earth, incapable to comprehend how this occurred even though he was swifter. As he tries to retaliate, his head drops to the earth, making his subordinates to halt. Mirio, Yong, and young Lord Yeon are all similarly astonished. Yeon Mayong stands before the decapitated leader, now completely convinced that the blade he is grasping is a work of art. He observes that the equilibrium is nearly flawless and the blade is so keen it wasn't even tainted by blood. He informs the blacksmith that this is undoubtedly the craft of a master. Yeon Mayong acknowledges the blacksmith's expert created a masterpiece and that the trainee is remarkable for persisting in that task. Hearing this, the blacksmith grows emotional while recalling his mentor. He remembers his mentor stating that every object of worth ultimately discovers a deserving possessor. Now, in the current time, the blacksmith acknowledges he has discovered the genuine possessor of the Demon Reaper. Meanwhile, our protagonist is occupied handling the leftover cultists, as they all rush at him concurrently. However, our hero effortlessly takes them all out with the Demon Reaper. Observing this, Yeon is frightened and the blacksmith is left in amazement. The girls are just as astonished, with Mirio disclosing she isn't even shocked anymore. She merely ponders when our youthful lord acquired the skill to wield a sword. In a structure, a man strolls through a hallway believing that everything is proceeding precisely as intended. That emerald-haired man observes that even the unconventional alliance cannot determine that he is from the cult's lineage. In truth, that man is Yoojung Yeon, the second son and the son-in-law of the Hunyan Gate's chief, Jin-sun Nam. He remembers that his son, Sacheong, is a naturally born fighter, as any member of the Yeon clan ought to be. He is not stating this merely because he is his father. Instead, it is a truth that individuals of Sacheong's age cannot even be contrasted with him. He grips his hand, considering that if Sacheong displays his combat skills in the forthcoming feast and secures a position in the unconventional alliance, it will be the initial step toward diminishing their influence. By the moment they comprehend something is amiss, a fiendish rout will have reached Sachin. Abruptly, a cloaked wounded man dashes in, shouting for Sir Yeon. Yoojung instantly identifies him as a part of the Thousand Moons squad accompanying Sacheong. The man notifies him that their youthful lord has been assaulted by a masked attacker. Meanwhile, Yeon Myong is occupied removing all the masked individuals. As the store fills with lifeless corpses, Mirio ponders vocally who will tidy up the chaos, adding that if Miso were present, she would have fainted. She then indicates that one of the men fled earlier and may come back with backup. However, our protagonist discloses that he allowed him to leave intentionally. He indicates his blade toward Sacheong and observes that this individual doesn't even realize he is linked to the demon cult. He suggests there must be someone who employed these men to guard him. Sacheong shouts an objection, asserting he doesn't even recognize who those men are. Yet our young lord pushes his sword against his throat, causing him to weep in terror. Our lad then discloses he will discover the reality shortly from those who are nearing now. Abruptly, an individual outside shouts loudly for our protagonist to emerge. Outside the store, Yoojung has come with his troops, yelling that he is aware our protagonist has captured the young master. He insists that they free him and yield, vowing to save their lives. Otherwise, Yoojung shouts angrily that he will give them to beasts. Subsequently, our protagonist ventures outdoors, stating that they are prepared and inquiring what Yoojung can potentially do while he possesses Sacheong. Meanwhile, Mirio, Yonggyong, and the blacksmith glance out from the store, pondering who the true antagonist is in this scenario. Mirio clenches her jaw as she watches the large amount of foes, which causes her to ponder what Yonggyong is considering. Yoojung shouts at our youthful lord again, informing him he doesn't comprehend who he is confronting. In reply, our champion promptly states the demon sect. He adds that he can perceive the malevolent energy emanating from them, which is infernal energy. He inquires if Yoojung has concealed his identity to sabotage Sacheong, mentioning that while he isn't certain if the unorthodox coalition is cognizant of this, they definitely won't overlook it once they discover. Yoojung is astonished that our protagonist detected the concealed demonic power with just one look. He also observes that our hero remains unharmed, even though the Heavenly Moon Brigade should have already eradicated him. Concluding that our main character is perilous, he commands the brigade to employ their reverse blood demonic method. Listening to this, Mirio identifies it as the identical method the Lord of the Demons of the Immense Skies employed against the Dang clan previously. As the concealed warriors release the method, our protagonist inquires Yoojung if he is connected to Jung Heek Yun. However, Yoojung wonders if that is genuinely what he desires to inquire before he passes away. While shifting the sword away from Sacheong, Yun Myung discloses he has no individual resentment towards Yoojung, but observes that Yoojung's family ruined his own. Yoojung derisively chuckles, exclaiming that there is no clan his sibling did not ruin. He begins speculating the Jiggle clan, the Moyong clan, and notes that since they are in Sakian, it must be the Dang clan. He assertively insists on knowing where our protagonist hails from, pledging to annihilate his family after disposing of him. Meanwhile, Miryong and Yun Myung begin to feel shivers. As Miryong starts to shift, Yun Myung seizes her, declaring that although they could perish if they meddle, they must rely on our young lord at this time. Yoojung shouts at his troops to eradicate him, while the pale serpent appears to inquire our protagonist about his strategy. As he lifts his sword, our lad inquires if the serpent truly needs to question, as he merely plans to bring them down. With a single action, remove, our lad takes takes down all the troops simultaneously. Yujung, the metal worker, and the girls are all left voiceless by what they just observed. Yujung cannot handle it, remembering that 70 fighters employed the reverse blood demonic method. Thus, he thinks even a master at the pinnacle realm couldn't be this powerful. This seems precisely like when Yujung was in the sect. He remembers that the left and right protectors were severely hurt at the conclusion of the heir's commencement ceremony, where the victor was Jung Heek-yun. Now, in the current moment, Yujung acknowledges internally that his siblings' strength surpassed the protectors at their zenith. He hasn't experienced that type of strength since that day, but he is perceiving it now from Yun Myung. Now, realizing this battle is futile, Yujung kneels and pleads with our hero to save his life. Deep inside, he desires to rescue his son, so he declares he will sacrifice his own life in return for Sachang's. He asserts his son is a typical child who was oblivious to the participation. However, our lad unemotionally inquires if it is typical in the sinister sect to attempt to eradicate a blacksmith just for not providing a sword. Abruptly, Sachang begins swearing at our protagonist, and as a result, our lad immediately takes him down. Observing his child's head drop, Yujung is filled with fury. Meanwhile, our champion states that this is precisely how the relatives of the individuals they murdered felt. Our main character doesn't feel any compassion for Yujung unemotionally, declaring that he doesn't even wish to spar with anyone from the demons of vast heavens. In a deep fury, Yujung begins shouting. However, disregarding the clamor, our lad takes him out for good. Later, Yun Myung feels perplexed when the blacksmith presents him the demon reaper at no cost. The metal worker declares he would have perished without him. Consequently, he is presenting him the sword as a present. He mentions that his mentor desired for the sword to locate its true possessor, and he thinks his mentor would be pleased with this choice. Mirio remarks that Yun Myung should simply accept it without objection, and Yun Myung praises him on the new armament. Hiro ultimately states that if everyone demands, he will agree to it. Mirio chuckles, highlighting that he was going to agree to it from the beginning. Our champion then asks for a more straightforward sheath since the sword is too conspicuous, and the blacksmith accepts the request. Meanwhile, the White Serpent cannot comprehend that a member of the Dang clan is this proficient with a sword. It simply cannot envision how formidable he will become in the future, perhaps even more so than the shadowless guest. In an extended queue of individuals, numerous people notice Yun Myung's group and start to murmur to one another, noting that he is the individual who was observed among the descendants of the Sachin gender. They notice that his aide and protector are both females, therefore causing them to deduce that he is quite the charmer. One individual questions aloud why he has come to participate in the banquet, while another notes that they can already envision what his combat skills must be like. Moreover, as they observe some women casting looks at him, someone else comments that they have already failed before even beginning. Internally, they confess they have never encountered a young man as attractive as Yun Myung in all their years. At the entrance, attendants approach Yun Myung and inquire about his identity. Our champion replies assuredly, proclaiming that he is the successor of the Dang clan of Sachin. Within the Heartfire faction, Seol Hyun gets news that the youthful lord of the Dang clan has at last come. Her informant, kneeling before her, conveys that our main character checked in early in the morning and proceeded straight to his accommodation. Seol Hyun clenches her jaw, believing that Yun Myung ought to relax for the time being, as she has intentions to remove him later to avenge her sibling Mag. Her reflections then wander back to her history, remembering the moment she was grasping a book in dread in the forest, in who Mag was the individual who rescued her from marauders. As a mistress of a high-ranking official, Seol Hyun had not needed to fret about sustenance, but she was nothing more than a toy for that man, who passed away unexpectedly one day. Knowing he was an enthusiastic gatherer of martial arts books, she succeeded in obtaining one and fled, wishing to begin a new existence. On that identical day, she met In Who. They became intimate, and he instructed her in the fundamentals of martial arts so she could defend herself. After mastering these fundamentals, she commenced studying the Crimson Lotus igniting fire method from the book she had taken. However, joy was not in her destiny, as her body started to decline from a fatal illness. When she understood that she did not have much time remaining, she chose to depart In Who, not wishing him to witness her in that condition. Time passed, and ultimately, she learned that In Who had become the leader of the Taiyul Black Sword sect, while she herself was restricted to her bed, anticipating death. Occasionally, she even desired to perish instead of suffering the ceaseless agony, yet she could not summon the courage to do it, as she was not prepared to abandon In Who. Luckily, one day, In Who showed up, accompanied by Gil Jean. In Who informed Gil Jean that Seol Yoon was a skilled woman, but now she was perishing. Gil Jean clarified that she had trained in a Yang-style combat technique with a female physique, and since spirit and reason are conflicting powers, the inevitable result was demise. He directed directed her to repeat the sections of the martial arts she had trained in. Seol Yoon started reciting, concluding in under 10 minutes. Subsequently, Gil Jean created a method that permitted her to utilize the Red Lotus Burning Flame method, naming it the Neo-Red Lotus Combustion Technique. Later, in appreciation for rescuing her life, Seol Yoon established the Heartfire sect and united with the coalition. She believed this could enable her to revive the past passion between herself and In Hu. However, to her astonishment, In Hu disclosed that he had merely pursued her due to her skill. He had already distanced himself from her more than she understood, yet she recognized she had no authority to accuse him because she had been the initial to depart, but at the same moment she did not wish to squander the second opportunity she had been granted. Before long, she obtained information about the Tai Yul Black Sword sex annihilation, and on that day, she vowed to herself that she would seek retribution on the successor of the Dang clan. Now, in the current moment, Seol Yoon clenches her jaw once more, recognizing that she would desire nothing more than to remove Yun Myung at this moment. But she understands that he has already attained the initial stage of transcendence. She is conscious that not even her Crimson Lotus igniting flame method would suffice to overcome him. Because of this, she has arranged something unique for the feast, something even our lad will not be able to evade. In other places, Yun Myung is contemplating his white serpent has attempted to disrupt him for the last 2 hours, but he has not shifted at all. The serpent ponders how he could be so concentrated at such a tender age, suspecting that perhaps he is truly an elderly man reverted to his youth. Within his thoughts, our main character is practicing with a fighter, and following the exchange of multiple assaults, he employs the method known as annihilation. However, his rival is entirely unscathed. At this, our youthful lord ponders if it is unfeasible to completely utilize annihilate with the Azure Pool of Poison-Free technique. He recalls having succeeded in removing 70 at once that day, but even that was merely half its capability. If the method were at its initial potency, then the power regulation method he employed in his former life, referred to as the Formidable Force technique, would be necessary. He determines he must conquer that if he wishes to unleash annihilate at complete strength. Yet, one of the traits of the Formidable Force technique is its destructive power, and most individuals perish immediately when trying it. Despite this, Yun Myung thinks he can swiftly attain the degree of influence he possessed in his previous existence. As he contemplates this, a portion of our hero still yearns to wield a sword, but he declines to pursue that route. With his present energy management method, he has been capable of generating the essence of annihilation, even if it is feeble. He understands it is feeble because the method does not fit the sword. With this acknowledgement, Yun Myung opens his eyes in actuality, only to discover his face adorned with sketches. He instructs Mirio to take them off his face, and she hiccups, still grasping a brush. She panics and inquires if he truly was not asleep, to which he shakes his head. Regardless, he is wishing that they both are prepared. Mirio nods assuredly, declaring that they are. Nevertheless, before he can rise, Yun Myung inquires her companion how long she is going to regard their young lord, as if he is her intimate friend. Mirio seethes. She does not comprehend why it disturbs her. Yun Myung retorts, shouting that no one will regard him seriously if his bodyguard behaves like that. Mirio contends, questioning why Yun Myung is concerned if anyone regards him seriously or not. Unexpectedly, our main character states Yun Myung is not incorrect, which makes Mirio even more annoyed as she highlights that he is supporting Yun Myung. Then, our youthful lord specifies that this does not imply they need to be cautious around the unconventional sect feeble ones, since he does not mind what a heap of corpses thinks of him. Ultimately, playfully, Yun Myung grabs the brush to repay her 10 times over, causing Mirio to halt. The feast of Sachi and finally commences, with artists playing to create the ambience. Following the presentation, Sachi and advances to present her opening address. She assuredly declares that all attendees already understand the aim of the feast of Sachian. Therefore, she gets right to the matter, proclaiming that everyone is assembled here to seize one another's power and to jeopardize having their own control taken. She states that the contenders will vie using martial arts, and, according to tradition, battles to the death are allowed. Every contender must record their desire as their wager and endorse the document. Thus, in the conclusion, the champion will claim all. The victor will possess power for 5 years, and should any disagreement emerge as the head of the Heartfire sect, she will certify their triumph. She cautions that anyone violating the regulations will be regarded as a betrayer against the coalition itself and penalized accordingly. After clarifying the rules, Seol Yoon motions toward the esteemed individuals present at this year's banquet. Among them is Master Myung Il Sang, also referred to as the Blade of the Nine Illusions. The attendees instantly identify him as one of the 6 remarkable unconventional leaders, and one even claims it was his aspiration as a swordsman to encounter encounter him at least once. Meanwhile, Myong grins to himself, acknowledging that Myong is causing him to flush since our youthful lord has already attained the initial tier of transcendence. He whimsically murmurs that he has arrived with Yoon Hui, the offspring of their lord, which has him expecting some remarkable martial arts exhibitions today. Seol, Yoon then declares that Myong will supervise any battles to the death, stating that anyone wanting to participate in such a contest must obtain his approval. As the feast officially commences, a considerable number of fighters raise their hands to seek consent. Among them, one asks that Myong permit him and Myong to battle to the death. This fighter is none other than Chienhui Mag, the oldest son of Inhu Mag, the previous chief of the Taiyel Black Sword sect. Upon recognizing Chienhui's identity, Myong ponders if this is regarding retribution, remembering whispers that Inhu was removed by the Dang clan. Inhu was celebrated as one of the mightiest fighters among all the sects. However, Chienhui advances and proclaims that as the successor of the Taiyel Black Sword sect, he desires to avenge his father's demise by confronting our protagonist. Meanwhile, Mirio, positioned among the throng, murmurs that it was the Taiyel Black Sword sect who assaulted the Dang clan first, but Yong swiftly prevents her from being too noisy. Myong gives Chienhui authorization for a fatal contest with our champion, and therefore both fighters advance into the arena. At the same moment, Yong becomes noticeably thrilled to witness our boy in action. She understands his martial arts abilities are said to be unmatched, but now she acknowledges he appears utterly attractive as well. Myong, noticing Yonghui's response, remarks on how excited she is, although he understands she will be equally disheartened if Yong loses the battle. Myong declares that solely the competitor's escorts and bodyguards are permitted to take part in this battle to the demise. Moreover, there are no prohibited types of assault, and contestants have the right to disregard their rival's capitulation. Upon listening to no dissent from either party, Myong asserts that they might assault with their bodyguards and aides. He then shifts to our main character and inquires if he has brought a protector. Yong discloses that he has but does not plan for them to interfere. He claims that the outcome will be identical whether he confronts one rival or three. Understandably, this remark enrages the opposing team, while Myong acknowledges he appreciates his courage. With that, the contest commences as the rival faction unsheathes their arms. After swapping looks, Chienhui's squad assembles, and Chienhui's blade starts to radiate a violet glow. The audience whispers in enthusiasm at observing the blade's glow. Someone shouts that it's the Black Sword sect leader's expertise, the Black Sword energy, while another notes that Chienhui has perfected the Tai-Yul twin swords method. Chienhui's bodyguard and aide initiate a concurrent assault on our protagonist, while Chienhui himself restrains, anticipating a chance so he can subsequently eradicate our boy with his dual blades. Nevertheless, in merely a moment, both of his guys are brought down by our protagonist. The onlookers are astonished, curious how both individuals fell down, until someone observes cowhair needles inserted in their necks. Even Myong finds it hard to accept what he has just observed. Subsequently, Yongmyong faces his adversary, inquiring how long he plans to leave him waiting and prompting him to take action before he dozes off. Chienhui seethes, hardly restraining his fury as he cannot wait to claim our hero's head. He ultimately assaults, but as he approaches, Chienhui is surprised to discover that Yongmyong has already disappeared from view. Our champion reemerges behind him, indicating that among those who trespass the Dang clan, two individuals brandish the same sword energy. One was Chienhui's parent, and the other was an undercover agent. However, our main character finds Chienhui much lesser than both of them. Chienhui is enraged, but experiences a feeling of despair. Incapable of accepting this is how it is going to conclude for him. Meanwhile, the audience observes that not even 10 minutes have elapsed since their battle commenced, and they cannot determine whether Yongmyong is merely too powerful or Chienhui is too feeble. Chienhui then realizes that he has been hit by a needle. He feels embarrassed, not for failing to achieve his vengeance, but for not measuring up to his father's legacy. Still, he calls upon his power, and the energy from his sword amplifies until it becomes entirely black. With his altered blade, Chienhui tries to strike our main character, resolved to demonstrate he is superior to his father. To everyone's astonishment, our champion effortlessly seizes the sword, infused with atmosphere, with his naked hand, and then shatters it into fragments. The whole audience is left in astonishment. Mirio, observing from the sidelines, quips that nothing astonishes her anymore, while Yongmyong cannot envision Yongmyong failing at this moment. Observing his rival sprawled vanquished, our lad contemplates that he initially planned to take it easy on Chienhui, but he never anticipated the other to stay upright after being poisoned by the blue-horned white snake's venom. In the center of the amazed crowd, Myong declares that he never imagined he would see the black hatching hand method here. He clarifies that, based on hearsay, way, the Dang clan dons gloves or strengthens their hands to manage sharp, concealed weapons. But what he observed was our main character halting a sword aura blade with his unprotected hands. Internally, Yongmyong understands it is all due to the aura body armor, dragon scale, but he has no desire of disclosing that, so he merely shrugs it off. Myong then declares that both he and the Heart Fire sect acknowledge Yongmyong's triumph, so now it is up to him to determine whether to proceed or halt. Our champion decides to proceed, but asks for approval to confront all those present simultaneously. The audience is left voiceless, while Seolhyun becomes enraged. Yongmyong states that, nonetheless, the final outcome will be identical either way. Now, every fighter in the arena is becoming enraged at Yongmyong. They sense as if their pride has been profoundly hurt, convinced that someone as conceited as him has offended them all by daring to confront everyone after merely a single triumph. They begin labeling him the haughty and small-minded successor of a defeated clan, thus proclaiming that they will demonstrate to him who the true warriors of Sachin are. Suddenly, Seolhyun advances and quiets the audience. She clarifies that the Feast of Sachin is not a senseless fight among ruffians and reminds everyone that this assembly is for the upcoming generation of martial artists to showcase their power and abilities, representing their respective gender. She icily declares that as the host, she will not permit anyone ignoring the regulations to behave as they please. Unexpectedly, Myong begins talking, inquiring Seolhyun if there is any true necessity to be so severe. He discloses that he sincerely wishes to observe what the Dang clan successor is capable of. Although Seolhyun objects, Myong soon interrupts her, thereby reminding her that he will personally intervene if matters get out of control. Unwillingly, she consents to his choice. Subsequently, Myong contemplates the Dang clan's concealed arms method, which is particularly appropriate for large-scale warfare, but he notes that if hundreds of fighters enter the arena simultaneously, they will merely end up obstructing each other. He informs our protagonist that they will restrict the quantity of adversaries he can confront at the same time, although he is permitted to select them himself. Myong also grants him the authority to voice any modifications he desires. However, with a assured grin, Myong peacefully declares that he is okay with the setup. Later, Myong is left completely astonished, starting to wonder whether he made the correct decision. At first, he believed that after a few rounds, the contestants would devise tactics to counter Myong's cow hair needles. He thought that once the challengers observed his concealed weapons technique, they would have a chance. Nonetheless, in under an hour, our main character has removed over half of the contestants. He has not employed any other method apart from the cow hair needles and blade catching technique. Nevertheless, one of the contenders succeeded in putting up a struggle. Myong cannot understand how our lad has become so strong, as he never detected that much inner energy from him. Therefore, Myong determines that at this pace, the feast cannot proceed much longer. Meanwhile, the competitors start to flee in despair, noisily announcing that they capitulate and are done with this feast. Surprisingly, a wrapped fighter advances, trampling on the earth and attracting everyone's notice. This wrapped figure declares that the Chobong sect will confront our hero next, adding that they do not require any other factions to back them, as he and his protectors are more than sufficient. He proclaims that our young lord's individual display concludes here, unveiling himself to be Cheongang Yob, successor of the Chobong sect. From above, Myong observes that while all the other contenders are retreating, Cheongang alone has risen to confront Yongmyong. He assumes that if anyone is able to vanquish our champion, it must be the Chobong sect. When Myong inquires Yongmyong if he has any dissent, he merely shakes his head. Deep down in his mind, our lad finds Cheongang intriguing. With that, Myong declares the commencement of the match. Our champion hurls his pins, but Cheongang responds to every single one, causing them rattle innocuously to the earth. Mirio and Yongyang are both astonished to witness that Cheongang has repelled all of our protagonist's strikes. They observe that Cheonggang's skin is arid and fissured like tree bark. Myong notices that he is employing the ancient tree body method, which desiccates and contorts the body and significantly fortifies the muscles and bones. Now the sole inquiry remaining is how Yongmyong will react. Then, our fighter employs the maneuver method Dark Shadow, evading his adversary so quickly that Myong becomes perplexed, unable to perceive him for an instant. Moreover, Myong ponders if our youthful lord has perfected the light movement method. After utilizing the method, our champion delivers a blow to one adversary, puncturing a needle into his brow. The second adversary immediately slides back, and our protagonist observes that it's feasible to penetrate this form with sufficient power. One adversary rushes directly at Yongmyong in a fury, but our lad seizes the man's mouth and pushes his digits inside. With a grin, he ponders if the rival's tongue is as resilient as the remainder of him. Then he punctures a needle into the tongue, causing the rival to fall apart. Our youthful lord believes it's a pity that the language was was not educated after all. Next, the third adversary, Cheongang, approaches him in efforts to deliver a blow. Subsequent to evading the assault, our champion retaliates with his personal method, crashing Cheongang to the earth. However, our lad observes that even after directing internal energy into his strike, he was unable to penetrate Cheongang's body. As Cheongang retaliates, our lad seizes his neck and clings on firmly. Our protagonist recognizes that Cheongang is powerful, but inquires if that is genuinely all he is capable of. He inquires if Cheongang truly believed he could succeed merely by depending on tough skin and asks if that's all he possesses to contribute, or if he would care about being removed right now. Cheongang grins and retorts, asking if our lad believes this is truly all there is. He discloses that he was anticipating Yongmyong to seize him, and as he seizes our hero's arm, Cheongang proclaims that now he will demonstrate the genuine strength of the ancient tree body method. Cheongang remembers how his mentor, Inya Yob, the head of the Chobong sect, instructed him in the concealed art of the method, cautioning him it must stay a secret from the universe. His mentor directed him that if he ever utilized it, he must eradicate his rival entirely. Now, in the current time, Cheongang scowls, thinking this is the ideal opportunity to employ that method. With that, he starts to release the concealed ability, the energy intake method. Cheongang declares that he will deplete all of our hero's inner strength, leaving him to fade and perish. Nevertheless, our main character exhales and informs him he would never perform that if he were in Cheonggang's situation.